I wasn't even his son, but Paul was my father. What is up, guys? What is up? That line is the perfect descriptor. Just a microcosmic descriptor of the best father and son dynamic in fiction. I had to intro with that one because, God, it hits. It hits so hard. Yeah, what's up, guys? This good time we're having. We're gonna be having.
It's me, Craftsdorf, here with HotBoySpicy, doing our 4th episode of Mushoku Tensei discussion. We're almost at the halfway point. Well, that said, I guess to get into comments real quick, because among them, I believe, Ronan mentioned how there's 2 other Mushoku Tensei books. Because he recollections and redundancy or redundant reincarnation. So I just wanted to throw this out there. Like maybe after we finish Mushoku Tensei, we could do like one more episode and read those. I would be
super down for that.
Oh yeah, let's sure. Okay,
I'm gonna be reading them anyway. So
that's perfect. We might as well they're not gonna. Yeah, it's just that's perfect. Well, so we'll do. So it's a 10 episode discussion. Oh no, that's perfect. Fine. That's fine with me. So yeah, I didn't. So anyway, do you want to start with the comment, or we can go? I guess.
I do want to mention. I love this comment by Motoharu Mark.
Yes.
It really sick observation here, and how in this stretch Rudeus is at his lowest in terms of like, arguably maybe even lower than he was in his previous life, having like no association with women. Because right now all his association with women is just super negative, right? I gave him freaking ED, so. Arguably, this is the worst he's been with the opposite sex.
In this specific way,
and in this stretch, he's interacting with so many men that are helping him out in so many ways. But not only that, you mentioned Sylphie and how he thinks Sylphie's a guy, but he starts actually getting romantic feelings for this dude. It's still a dude in his head, right? And there's not really a lot there. I mean, Sylphie obviously, or Fitz rather, has feminine like traits, but Rudeus, I think, is falling more in love with Fitz's actions rather than those little bit of feminine traits he has. But
and Fitz as a person too,
Obviously, those probably like help out Rudeus's affection for Fitz. But I love that because I hadn't really put that into perspective yet. Like starting with I'm like going blank on his name. I know his name. Soldat. Starting with Soldat into Cliff, into Zanoba, he well, even Badigadi to some extent, right? He's getting all of these male and let's be honest, Linny and Persona, they're kind of just some more bros.
they're platonic female friends for sure. Because I would say that like one thing that is different is that they are like their sexuality is a part of there's their banter, and even like in the start of volume 11 in volume 10 when the scene you were mentioning before with like them being like recognizing Rudy's sexual aura, right? Like that, they're women, and that is a part of their characters, but I still see they're still platonic. They're not really like they address that, right?
Although the man god was trying some sus stuff.
Dude, I'm still like, it's so interesting to me because we see the result of every other one of Rudy's like responses to the man god's words, except like I haven't got I don't know how this what the fuck, I don't know. I'm going blind. Like I've gotten a little bit of stuff that's not in the anime, but after this I'm caught up now. I'm like, what do I do? What's going on?
The man god cooking? What is he cooking? That's
right, because it almost feels like like Rudy even takes it like, oh, he might like, did he really think I was gonna do this? Because it's like he's like faithful as Sylphie, but it's like, well, but then cheat on her with these other ladies. It'll be more happier for you in the end. I'm like, even if he stayed in Renoa, I don't know if he would have done that. Like, it's just it's kind of weird. But anyway, but no, I also like that. I thought that was a good comment.
I do want to mention too on this the male dynamics, because even at the end of toward the end of volume 12, Rudeus talks about the color green and how it's his favorite color, not just because of Sylphie's previous hair, but because of why am I doing Ruiger? Why am I doing this today? Sold Out Now Ruiger. God damn. It is
my favorite, one of my favorite series ever. I don't remember any of the characters' names though.
Literally, I don't remember anyone, guys. It's over for me. I haven't, I do have an excuse. The last 3 days of sleep been kind of rough, but we'll get through it tonight.
Unfortunate.
It's Ruiger, and then Sylphie, and he even I think it was it even in the, maybe it was in volume 10 that he had that. Oh yeah, because that was when the house renovations were happening. He had it also painted green because so we got a little bit of hint of that it is his favorite color. And I think that's so sweet. That's so cool. It's not just Sylphie. It's of course Ruiger, because Ruiger made a huge impact on him and his growth. So.
But yeah, one thing that I also thought about reading the comment was how, because he starts off listing off all the side casts, and I was even thinking about it, and because I don't know, maybe I did mention this last time, and I'm forgetting right now, or I thought about it, or I don't know, but I was thinking about like why, because like, I was just thinking about the world building and stuff, because I remember talking about like how it's like, oh, it makes sense that like, because they go into exploring a lot of like the academy and Rudy's, and now Rudy's house, right? Because like this is going to be the setting of the story for God knows how long. Like they're probably going to leave again, but I feel like this is their home and this is where they're always going to be coming back to, right? Unless something catastrophic happens. But to get to my point, it's like I was thinking about like why is this so much more enjoyable than like the adventuring stuff in volume 3, right? Because like Eris and Rudeus are great, don't get me wrong, but I think like the Renoa cast, like it has a much bigger side cast and they're all good, right? So I think oh, of course this is more entertaining, right? Overall, because I get it, like even though it's like the story's like slowed down in a sense, but it's like we get all these characters and they're all neat and they're fun, and so of course I just hadn't really thought. I don't remember if I brought it up last time, but I was just thinking about like, oh yeah, of course this stretch is more entertaining for that reason, right? Where I'm like, I mean, they even brought up like the lizard guy who knew animals really well, I think, or something. He met geese, I think. I forget his name, but do you know what I'm talking about? It was in volume 12. This came up, or hold on.
You're saying who that geese was?
Was it geese? Hold on. Let me check my notes. Did I write it down? Yeah, lizard-faced demons who's good with animals. That she was in like chapter 12.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I don't remember what character that was though. I vaguely do. I was like, was it that one? Because I remember. Was it the one of the two? Because there was a trio of guys who were like kidnapping animals.
That's what I assumed. Yeah, but I don't remember which specific character is the one.
Right, and that's kind of my point, is because like there were other characters beyond Rudy, and Eris, right? Like, and then same when they went to Doldy and stuff. But like those core three are really good, and the rest of the cast doesn't, like, comparing them to the side cast in Renoa. It's like, yeah, of course these characters are more stand out to me because they're more. They're more interesting. They got more stuff going on, and they got their own dynamic. And it's and we also spend more time on them, admittedly, right? But I was just again just like thinking of like why is this part of the story more enjoyable to me than that part of the story? And it's like, well, that's a pretty fair reason. So I wanted to bring that up because that was a point of discussion earlier. We get more of those characters in this reading.
Ronan left a pretty long comment.
Yes, I was going to go that. I started with that one, but I was going to go back to it. Yes, so go ahead.
Thank you, Ronan, for the. I had completely forgotten last episode that Paul, him like running on 4 legs to Rudeus, is actually a legitimate North God style stance. So nice to see. And then he makes a pretty interesting point here that swordsmen probably start earlier than mages, so they actually have probably on average more mana capacity, so they're able to use more battle aura than like a mage is able to use mana to make magic. And I find that really interesting. So he's essentially saying the average swordsman probably has more mana than or at least beyond beginner tier, has probably on average more mana than like your average mage, which is actually really funny to think about. That might be true. I wonder if, because I don't even remember if Rikujin notes this or not, but I think it's an interesting thought nonetheless.
It makes sense for sure. Because I was just mentally kind of comparing it to the like archery and just thinking about that again, about how like archery just sort of isn't incentivized in the world through the mechanics of mana, because it doesn't, like, you can't really support archery with like Sarah being this incredibly talented archer is like she's still like only so good of an adventurer, right? So yeah, I don't know. I just thought about that while reading it, but no, it's definitely interesting to think about because just culturally how like the warrior, I don't know, because I would think like magic being tied to like knowledge and education, I would imagine like we teach literacy at around around like 6 in our world, right? Like 5 or 6 is when we want kids to start learning how to read, if not sooner. Like we at least make them familiar with letters and stuff. Like all children's toys have letters on them and numbers. Like we want them to be familiar with these symbols from literal infancy, right? So in my head, I'm like, I would think that they'd teach magic sooner, but I guess that's not normal. Yeah. A quick aside is Cloud says, I disagree with your take on the slavery section. I don't know specifically what he's referring to because his comment about illegal versus legal slavery doesn't really like. I don't remember. We talked about that for like 20 minutes. I don't know what you're referring to. I'm sorry.
It does. Well, admittedly, it doesn't tackle my critique. Whether it's illegal or legal does not matter. Like
because mostly I remember he was talking about it just morally, and especially like the conflicting like our morals versus this world's morals.
Yeah,
and, my law doesn't really. Yeah.
My disagreement. I think what Cloud is referring to is my.
Well, he just says your, so I was naturally thinking about what I was saying during that section first. But now I remember your. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think because we were pretty much positive on the way, because I introduced my grievance by saying what Rudeus is doing is understandable, completely understandable. Like I have nothing but like good things to say about the way it's handled in terms of Rudeus's actions. What I didn't like is, given Refugen's track record of being very detailed from Rudeus's perspective, I didn't like the fact that whether legal or illegal, Rudeus was seeing enslaved children and not thinking back to his time with Ruijerd and how Ruijerd would feel about this situation, being a member of Dead End and being the kind of quasi leader of Dead End. How he would feel about that, because Ruijerd would not care whether it's legal or illegal.
Of course, he's like, I haven't assaulted any castles lately. Like, no, he doesn't care about the law.
Yeah,
like his morality is more important.
my grievance was like very specific. It's just that I wanted Rudeus to think about that a little bit and be a little bit pained that he has to turn his eyes away from this. I don't want him to do anything about it, because I know why he can't. I understand that, and he's just not that type of character in general. I completely get that. All I would want is just a little bit of internal monologuing, going back to his time with Ruijerd, and how this makes him feel on a moral level, because this should hurt Rudeus on a moral level, especially being with Ruijerd. So it's not even super major. I mean, that plot thread takes us to Julie. Julie is important in one sense in the narrative, but in the overarching narrative, I guess, spoiler alert, not really. I don't really expect you to think Julie is going to be insanely important later on. Yeah, she's not one of the most important characters anyway. So for this to be, for us to be starting on kind of a little bit of a low point with her, at least in my opinion, at least a plot point related to her, doesn't really, I don't take it as like, oh, this is like a super bad moment that like crescendos, and no, like Julie is a pretty cool character. Does cool, she's cute, whatever. Like this grievance is not that big. It's not that big of a deal for me. It doesn't damper a whole lot. It's just literally just that one segment. It dampers it slightly. So yeah, not much to say there. Cloud, you can comment on this episode and maybe
clarify if that's not what you're talking about. Like, I'd love clarification. But yeah. There were a couple other comments, like we had our Spanish speaker go in, which judging by Google Translate, they were just talking about some their take on what we were talking about with the action regarding slavery.
We of course agree. I agree with the assessment.
I think
Oh, and then All About MMA is excited for volume 13 through 15. Hey.
Me too. I don't even know what I'm in for, but that's part of why I'm looking forward to it. Like, so real quick to sit, I was kind of teasing. So we were gonna record this a little later because I like counted up the chapters and I was like, oh, I might need more time to read it because I normally read 2 chapters a day. so on Saturday, I got to the first chapter I was going to read that day was the them encountering the Hydra at the bottom of the dungeon, and I proceeded to read half the book. So I read 8 chapters. I couldn't stop, and because it's like, well, because I got to the fight thing, I got to Paul, I got to then them going home, and then it's like, oh shit, the Roxy and Sylphie situation, and them having to break the news about Paul, and it's like I couldn't stop. And then I read and then I had 1 chapter left because by then it was like pretty late, so I just I was like, I don't want to finish it like right away. I'll read it like Tuesday or Wednesday, and then I ended up reading on Sunday instead and finishing the book. So yeah, good stuff. And my fear is that happens in this, like, because if in this upcoming reading, and I just because I even told you, it's like I'm looking forward to, because I've had urges to like read, but I don't want to, because even though like obviously I wouldn't be spoiling you because you're already familiar with it, but like I don't want to like do what you did last time, where like sort of like muddying the discussion a bit because you're remembering like stuff that you just read from the books that we haven't read yet, and discussed yet, right? So I've do other podcasts and do discussions with other people, and similarly I just don't want to blur my memory of things by reading too much or going, because it's like, it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, I don't have to wait. I can just read some if I want to after this.
Yeah, I mean, and this is behind the scenes stuff, of course. But I mean, yes. I'll go ahead and say now, Crafts, if you for this next batch, for instance, get the same drive, and like for like 2 out of the 3 volumes, for instance, you were just reading like a crazy man, and you want to do two weeks instead of 3 weeks before we do next episode, I can ramp up my pace pretty easily. So
yeah, I was gonna say what I'd probably do is I just like let you know, so that if you do want to read faster, you can. But obviously, it's like I don't want to make you feel like you're obligated to do that, because if something happens on your end that you can't read as much as you'd like to, I don't want you to feel like, oh no, I'm letting Craftsdorf down, I need to read fast. Like, no, yeah, it's sure. Fine. But if you can read faster, then I'm not gonna say no.
We'll cross that bridge whenever we cross it, if you do this anyway. So
yes, because I don't know. May or may
not get an early release of 13 through 15. We'll see. It's to be determined.
Because that's the one. Because we've talked about it before, but like, because if we like to avoid get burnout, like I had the idea of like maybe we'll do something else that's not Mushoku Tensei. But you're like, no, I want to get to at least 15 first, and I agreed, because not even like putting aside the fact that like everyone thinks it's really good, just the fact that I want new stuff, right? Like, yeah, exactly, I'm going to read up to exactly where we got to in the anime and then just stop for a while. It's like, then what's the point of reading it? Is it the whole point of reading it to get to new content? So it's like that, and I've got some new content, but like, volume 13 is right there. I have it open. It's on chapter 1. I'm looking. I just, it's right there. I'm good. No, I got to eat dinner, but maybe I'll read some tonight. I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see.
Anyway. So I guess we'll start off properly with volume 10.
Okay, I do. One little more preliminary thing. I do want to mention you guys who love Mushoku Tensei, obviously familiar with the season 2 anime. I've been going through it, been appreciating it way more in my reading it in tandem with the light novels. I love the decisions they made. I would have made the same decisions as the anime studio if I was honestly potentially worse than that. I think they did an amazing job with season 2. Obviously, it wasn't consistently as well produced. That's fine. If you're not going to put in as much talent or budget in this season, this is the season to do it, honestly, for the bulk of it. A little bit, the more it's not a lot of crazy shit happens in this sort of middle section, between core 1 and core 2. But I will say, I did yesterday, after finishing volume 12, I rewatched episode 22 of season 2, Parents. My God, is that episode still it is just the best Mushoku Tensei episode. They nailed it. If there was one episode that they were going to put their all into, they chose right. That episode is amazing. Fucking love season 2. But one thing I do want to mention that's really interesting, I urge you guys to go back to the openings and endings. There's a lot of super cool symbolism in season 2 opening 1, So it's not just that, okay, yeah, there's 3 different birds. Like there's a blue one, there's a red one, and there's a green one. They come in and out periodically. Pay attention to the positioning and pay attention to when they fly away. Pay attention to all that stuff. It's really fucking cool.
Once you mention the color, it's like,
yeah. It's really fun. It is really fucking cool. And then even at the end of the opening, the green bird is like flying in toward Rudeus, and then for like a few frames, and then it turns white at the end, and it's like, it's so cool. But like that's not even really the cool stuff. The red and the blue, that's really cool. Another thing I took note of is I just watched before I came on here. I watched the second to last episode of season 2, and in the ending, I don't think I watched the entire. I watched the entire second ending of the second season, and there's a scene, and it's so beautiful. And coming right off volume 12, I was like, it's so beautiful. Sylphie is in a field of blue flowers, and she cradles a few of them in her hand and like looks at it really lovingly, and then like, you know, tosses the flower, lets it kind of like blow away in the wind as it. And I was about to cry. I was like, oh, it's so beautiful, because she's like accepting Roxy into their home. And we know, even at the end of volume 12, Roxy, like, as soon as she's kind of indoctrinated into the Gray Rat family, she pretty much immediately goes and becomes a teacher. So, like, through this also, she's like taking another big stride forward. You know, family.
Yeah, no, I did remember that
her
from the anime with her, because in volume 12 she just mentions like, oh yeah, or maybe it was volume like. No, I think it was volume 12, but she mentioned she wanted to be a teacher at Renault, and I was like, well, that's convenient because I know where the anime lives off, and it's like, oh, she lives right there, you know.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, dude. Man, that ending was so with the field of blue flowers. Like, oh, it's peak. It's so peak.
And it's really cool because I remember talking about it before. You had some misgivings about season 2. I remember, you know, because obviously, yeah, there's things they have to cut, which I think makes sense, just because it's like they need to keep it a certain episode length because of seasonal cores and just how the whole structure of TV anime works. And these are also the longest volumes so far. You know,
yeah, and honestly, even some of the bigger ones, like in the anime, Elinalise not telling Rudeus that Roxy is pregnant. In the anime, that's actually missing. That doesn't affect me as much, because when you all put it all together, it doesn't really change much anyway on all the decisions the characters makes. Like, obviously, like, Rudeus is a lot more like, oh shit, I need to marry this woman in the light of it. You feel that a lot more, given that, oh, like, I got to take responsibility. Roxy's pregnant, like, and it's really funny, and it's also really good character moment for Elinalise to learn that, like, oh, that was a fabrication all along. Like, it's good for Rudeus and it's good for her, but you don't like. You gain something by having it there, but it's not necessarily necessary, right? Yeah. So yeah,
cool. Because I just assumed it was something I forgot from season 2, even though I literally watched the second core this year. I didn't know it was just not in the anime at all, because I was like, when that happened, I was like, what? And then it's like, she's not pregnant. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna. All right. Never mind. I mean, not.
They talk about making babies though. But,
yet, yet. Put a big yet at the end of that. So, anyway,
we'll be seeing. All right, yeah. So we can move on from the. I'm sorry, I just had to talk about season.
It's fine. So I was looking through my notes, and I guess one of the things that we might have talked about instead of or after, or you know, Mushoku Tensei, is we talk about Evangelion for doing that, and they reference. Hold on, I'm trying to find it because I had a note here that maybe. No, it was where did they reference it in this chapter? Hold on, I'm trying to find it. But I don't remember how they reference. I just wrote down that they referenced it, but I didn't write down what they referenced. Hold on. Well, because there was the conversation about like Nanahoshi not recognizing Sailor Moon somehow, which was like, oh my god, what? Oh no, that's like an I'm old thing, because obviously Sailor Moon ran in the 90s, so like Rudy, you know, being 34 would recognize it, but Nanahoshi, she'd be more familiar with like probably like Ojamaja Doremi or Precure, I imagine. Oh, that was it. Oh, okay. So in the last episode of a certain TV series, like being congratulated in the last episode of which you've seen Evangelion, you know about the famous like congratulations, like or infamous rather. Well, specifically what he says is that I didn't know about is that he says in the order, maybe the order in which they'd congratulate me was the order they were going to die, and I was like, wait a minute, is that actually like? I don't like I guess I'll keep my eye out when I go through Evangelion because I just happen to have not heard that before. Maybe it's something that's a part of the Japanese side of the discourse, and I just it's probably I mean this novel's been published out. It's fucking Evangelion, so I just like I just had a moment of like I just thought it was interesting because it not only referenced Evangelion, but it possibly taught me something about Evangelion that I didn't know before. that's and I'm not the biggest funny. Like Eva head because again I just don't know how like out there this is and in what corners because like again this could have been something that more came up from the Japanese side of the discussion that Westerners didn't really notice before, you know.
I'm glad you mentioned this too because I've also seen Ava and I caught that reference as well and I just assumed like this is because I have never really been part of the dialogue. I just assumed this has probably been talked about a lot and I just didn't know it, but and I will say it is cool.
I'm just none because I'm not super into like I'm not watching every Evangelion video. I just think and that's just like even that is just like a neat piece of trivia. Like it's not something that I feel like would be super meaningful if I rewatched Evangelion, but it's still neat, and I didn't think about it or know about it because I hadn't heard it before until just now. So, and maybe it's more out there than I've seen because I'm also just not super into the discussion in general. But I have been at some point, but I still don't like. There's some details that I do know. Like one is so you know how Asuka has her big yellow shirt that she wears sometimes. That's Misato's shirt. She stole it because and it's sort of evocative of her desire to be more like adult and grown up for like because she's in love with Kaji. And then there's Ritsuko in the episode because sometimes Gendo will just like leave. She doesn't wear her makeup when he's gone because she's like trying to attract him. And so she only puts on her makeup when Gendo's in town. And it's like, the show never points this out. I just remember seeing other people point these little details out and being like, oh, that's neat. I didn't notice really that cool. myself, you know. So this is just another like one of those details that I'll have in mind next time I watch Evangelion, which we'll probably do when we discuss it at one point after Mushoku Tensei's. Because I feel like after Mushoku Tensei's done, we're gonna want to do some shorter things that aren't like 9 to 10 episode because it's like this is the second thing we're discussing on this podcast. We've been doing it for like a year almost.
That's dude. That's crazy that it's coming up. Like we started in January with Bleach.
Yeah,
right?
because I specifically like some autism is like I don't like to start the things I start this year I generally want to finish them this year. Like I want to have less than like when the stuff because I have a media thread, so the stuff I'd finish next year I want it to be the stuff that I also started that year, generally speaking, because obviously especially with ongoing stuff you can't really do that. So that's why I wanted to part of the reason I wanted to start Bleach this year was because I wanted to finish it this year. Well, Mushoku Tensei it's a little different because they're individual volumes, so that I'm not too fussed about. But because obviously we're not going to finish it this year. But I mean, I could, but no, probably it would be tough. It would be difficult. Anyway, my point being is that like less longer things for a little while, at least like a couple, you know. And Evangelion's been something I've been meaning to get to on this for a while, but you know, it's fine. But anyway, okay, that was a big tangent for something that's really doesn't matter that much, but oh well. I was just like looking through my notes of like things I want to talk about, and that stuck out to me because anyway.
Alrighty. Well, starting with volume 10, we can talk about the things I already spoiled for Crafts last time. Right after Rudeus he's back to being a man, or well, maybe I guess it's the first time
more masculine,
more masculine, yeah.
He's more, but
he's all confident. He's walking. He's talking, and people are like, "Wow, the aura is immaculate."
Confidence is back, and immediately, especially like the Linnea and Persona have a sort of inverse where, Linnea was more like chill with him, and then she's more guarded since he's, which I think especially think about the way Persona just kind of like sells Linnea out to him, like, oh, thanks for that, you can grab Linnea's breasts as a reward, and she's like, yeah, wait, what? Like that's I like it's a silly gag, but then having Persona being more interested in like herself being the one to but where Linnea's more like no, is just an interesting inverse because of his like change in demeanor, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah.
And then what else?
For me, something that I'm pretty sure this was new for me, and I surprisingly really enjoyed it. I'm skipping ahead a little bit here.
That's fine.
I loved the whole section about the house renovation. It was really cute.
Yeah.
I was really enjoying it. I was like, oh shit, we're getting that. Oh shit, the bath. Okay. Let's see what we got here. The dwarf guy was like, just noting all the new things. It's like before this house was. It was like it's literally like watching one of those American TV shows where like I don't remember what the show is called, where it's like they literally show before and after. They're like before the living room.
There's there's also reality shows like home makeovers and stuff like that where they refurbish someone's home basically.
I was really fun. I was like, okay. I was fine with it. I was like, yeah, let's go. We got some furniture in there now. I don't know. Anyway, it was just enjoyable. I liked it a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's such a important part of actually being in a relationship, right? So like just them going like, yeah, let's get our furniture and our living space, and like, oh shit, this house is too big for us. It's like, gotta fill up with more wives. No, that's volume 12. True. I've seen obviously like the volume 13 cover and the which is referencing the volume 1 cover, and then also the final volume cover, which is also like they're all Rudy's family at these points in his lives, and it's like, let's fucking go. So don't look up the last volume cover. It's lots of spoilers on it.
Yes, very much so.
Also, don't follow HotBoySpicy. He'll tweet out the volume covers and spoil you.
Also true. Yes.
It's true, but it's obviously I don't mind. I just think it's funny. It's also you can also don't go to a bookstore and peruse Mushoku Tensei volumes. You see them advertised, like put up front and center, because you'll get spoiled. Like, of course, that's just, it's the cover of a book. I feel like you can't really get spoiled on the cover of a book just because it's like, you're bound to run into it. Like, the illustrations inside is one thing, or the content of the book is one thing, but the cover, it's like, that's just, marketing material, basically. So, partly.
Yeah.
The doll is really interesting because I don't know, it's kind of perfect because the conflict of the novel, the volume 10 specifically, is Nanahoshi like running into a wall with her research and just like falling apart basically and becoming really just despondent because she just like sees no hope. And I just like the way it's resolved, where it's literally like all of Rudy's connections basically are able to help Nanahoshi make leaps in her research by like him, because that's such like that's something he's really because obviously in his previous life he had no connections, he had no bonds. So something he's been paying some attention to this world, because like he's aware that in order to succeed in the world you need connections, right? And that not that he's seeking success necessarily, but like if anything it's more just happening incidentally, but like he's being cordial with people and not burning bridges, right? And just being like a functional human being, but like also that with Cliff just being very intelligent, and Zanoba having this very specific interest in dolls and discovering these magic circles on the incredibly complex magic circles on this like automaton that they run into, and like that like I don't know. So like just getting all these little details and seeing all of them sort of coalesce in this novel is really cool.
Hell yeah. I agree. The Nanahoshi section I think is really great, and it's super interesting too, because there's not one, but at least in this reading there's not one, but there's two segments that are similar. It's Nanahoshi and Norn that kind of like bring Rudeus back to his old self, and the two people that were in similar at least similar rock bottom circumstances are right before him. I think that's really cool. It's really interesting. The Nanahoshi stuff. Is Nanahoshi is a consistently really cool character. She spices up the story. I mean just on conceptually she's really cool, right? Like she is from the same world as Rudeus, and but her circumstance is a little bit different, and it's the inverse. She wants to go back home where Rudeus has like found a new life here, and he wants to do anything but go back to his old life. There is a little bit of a paradigm shift on that at the end here, where Rudeus accumulates. Just in this entire reading, he's accumulating more and more regrets, because even with Norn's circumstance, sort of his ending note on that is not only how strong Norn is, but he's thinking, wow, if Nanahoshi finds a way to go back, I should leave a note with her telling, my brother I'm sorry, right? He's starting to have these thoughts, and that's also in volume 12 where he starts to think about his parents, where he's like, shit, I never even went to their funeral. Why the fuck did I not go to their funeral? It is really cool to see a little bit of that paradigm shift, where he's like caring more and more a little bit about the people in his previous life through the people in his current life, right? They're helping him, illuminate some of that.
Yeah.
I think is really fucking cool. It's really fucking cool.
But yeah, volume 10 is just like, it's just a nice chill time. And because it kind of, obviously in this reading, it's kind of, because obviously halfway through the next volume is the turning point. But because I'm just looking, and there's just like lots of fun interactions. Like you have the wedding party where you just have like all these characters that don't necessarily, like not all of them have interacted with each other, like especially Ariel's faction with the so just just getting all these like little interactions with characters, and like the notes of like the nobility, and that being a sticking plot with Zanoba being a prince, of course. I do like how they're like, oh, Bodyguardi, he's, oh, sorry, I got noise in the background.
Wee woo, wee woo. Yeah. They're here to catch you because you're talking about Mushoku Tensei. Uh-oh, problematic.
Damn it. Fuck it. I mean, now that's a joke now that I don't want to remove from the thing. So anyway, Bodyguard. So yeah, basically just Bodyguard. Yeah, Bodyguardi's not going to show for like a month, and he comes in anyway. And he's cool. He's a cool guy.
Yeah. And then he interacts a little bit with Ariel too, just funny. Yeah. And then the big moment in that segment is the revelation. Elinalise, Miss Elinalise, are you my grandmother? It's like
yeah. Honestly, Elinalise, like I not that I didn't like her in the anime, but reading it definitely just made me think about like how she's just. God damn these fucking sirens.
They really don't even want you to stop talking, bro.
Yeah. She's just really good. And I think one of the things that I think is really cool about her, because I was just thinking about like how in discourse in general, when it comes to like, especially female characters and sexuality, like it's an important talking point for sure, right? With like whether things are like problematic or positive, and just like the way characters are sexual or sexualized, right? But I think Elinalise is neat because like her sexuality is like such an important part of her character, right? With the curse, but even though like she even says like, without the curse, I'd still fuck. It's sex is fun, right? But it's also like it's such an important part of her character, but it's like far from defining her. I think, I just think that's really cool because like she is just like a good person, and she has all these other dynamics, and like especially like the way that she's grown, I guess, because like we get some teases and she, like some of the way she talks in the later volumes, I think, specifically about like parting on bad terms, which are like in chapter 13 of volume 12, I was reading it as like, oh, I think that's about her. Because like the fact that she just got over her shit with Paul after being angry about him for like half of the story so far, like she's been pissed at Paul like ever since his name entered her mouth, right? And then she meets him and it's like, okay, I'm over it. Like she just got and that's great. So I don't know, it's just Ellen, she's full of lots of good moments, and and her being Sylvie's grandma and helping out with like the relationship stuff with both Sylvie and Roxy is just like, she's a good lady. So yeah.
It makes sense that she's able to come up with all these answers and sort of mediate a lot of things, because she's got a lot of years, she's got a lot of wisdom. She's lived a life, and her life has not been easy at all, especially with the curse. There's that whole story she tells to Rudeus about how she knows of someone that got caught up with a dude who only took advantage of this woman, and then she got sold into essentially sex slavery to pay off his debts, and it seems to be obviously talking about her.
Right. That was how. Well, specifically, how I read it was that's what after she got because I was building off of what you were talking about with the idea of like maybe the reason she was angry at Paul was because maybe Paul was sort of like a cliff in a sense where he maybe was going to be more like loyal and faithful to her, but then maybe the Zenith stuff happened, but they were together for a while, so I don't know about that. Or maybe he did try to, I don't know what happened, but like that scene, like I like that idea, but I was also thinking about like maybe after the breakup happened, because obviously Paul went off with Zenith, so Elinalise being hurt, round up with that other guy, and then got sold into, and it just had that whole as the story. That's what I inferred as well, basically, or assumed. No, absolutely right, and that being like I don't know, just think about like how Paul's party got like Paul and Zenith and Talhand seem all right, I guess, because like obviously Paul and Zenith went off and got married, but Elinalise and Ghislaine kind of got the short end of the stick there, because they went off and they did not have a good fucking time at all, right? Like they were very much taken advantage of and lost their, but they've also both grown and improved a lot as people. Like Ghislaine is fucking unrecognizable to her family, right? Back in Doldia, so like they're like who are you describing? There's no fucking, this is some other woman named Ghislaine. That's impossible, right? And obviously Elinalise is like, as she compares to her previous self, she's also grown a lot. So I don't know, I was just thinking about that and like, man, that party went off in two different directions. So
and I just love like it really makes you think too, because like Ghislaine is such a Giga Chad. She's just like she even in the description that the party has of her, they're still talking to her more similarly to how the Doldia tribe talked about her. Like, man, she couldn't do anything right, but I mean, her sixth sense was pretty good. That's kind of, she's a good fighter. Her sixth sense was good, but those are the only two reasons we kind of had her around. If it weren't for that, she'd be fucking useless. She was dumb. She's easily exploitable. But but the Ghislaine Rudeus knows is a lot more reliable. Sword King Ghislaine. And back then, obviously, probably she was not a Sword King. I mean, it seems to be she didn't go to the Sword Sanctum until after the party disbanded. So that's when she really started her climb to become a super insane, and competent individual and powerhouse. But I think it's so funny that the first person who actually accepted the reach out from Paul, or at least maybe Paul even attempted to reach out to her first and foremost, is because he trusted that she would not hate him as much as everyone else in the party. But save for Geese. But Geese is Geese is kind of a loose cannon. He's everywhere. No, it's hard to get the reins in on Geese. But I just find it so funny that Ghislaine is so willing to just like take in Rudeus and bring him to the Boreas place. And how she doesn't seem to have any ill feelings for Paul, even though it's very explicitly told to us that they had a very sexual relationship. Like both of them were just kind of no strings attached. Like we're both horny fucks. Let's do this shit, and then we'll skedaddle. No hard feelings. I think that's funny. Because she's similar to Paul that way, I guess you could say. And it's funny to me.
But this isn't a point that's going anywhere, because I don't, especially with Paul being dead. I mean, maybe, but I just don't see us getting that much more with that old adventuring party. But I was just thinking about how, because we were talking last time about Paul sort of having to really grow up when the teleportation incident happened, right? And him being sort of like, obviously when he was raising Rudy, he was still like immature in some ways. But I was just thinking about how that like sort of like Paul went off with Zenith and had his family, but he didn't grow up until the teleportation incident, where Ghislaine and Elinalise, they did their growing up after that first party broke up. So I was just thinking about, interesting. So I was just thinking about that in regards to, like, maybe there's something like you could use that to frame them in contrast with Paul or something. But again, I don't expect us to get that much more about that dynamic. But maybe I'll be surprised. But that was just something I was thinking about. So as we were talking,
interesting. Okay. What else from Volume 10? Is it the end of Volume 10 where Ruijerd comes in?
Because you have the fucking brief meeting between Ruijerd and Bodigadi, and then Bodigadi just fucks off, and I haven't seen him. I don't know where he went. What the fuck? And because even Rudy's like, man, if I need to meet Bodyguardi, maybe smooth things over with him because this is a little
awkward.
But he never gives that chance.
He looks at Ruijerd and he goes, I see, and then just fucking skedaddles.
Yeah, but then, and yes, we get the babies, Norn and Aisha. They're here.
Yes, the queens, albeit I have a little bit more affections for Norn, but I still love you, Aisha.
I understand, but I for me, it's still, it's pretty even because for reasons I'll go into.
Cool.
Because I think as far as like character stuff, like Norn gets some really good stuff this reading. Where Aisha, it's like if anything, she's lost. Like I loved her like mischievousness and her sort of like the control she has through her like intelligence and her just being like a troll. Like I really love that aspect of her character. And this, I feel like, because I feel like in these volumes, it's mostly just like her being competitive with Norn and her being this like subservient maid with Rudy, and then a little at the end, of course, where she actually just like is glad that her mom is alive and safe and cries, and it's really sweet and good. And that was a good moment. But so in that way, it's like yeah.
And something I also appreciate about Aisha is like it's slowly but surely she starts talking to him more as a little sister to an older brother. Whereas like in the intro, she's like very respectful to Rudeus. But it's during the section where Rudeus is buying stuff with her, she starts talking a little bit more casually until the end of volume 12, where she's literally just like throwing strays at Rudeus, being freaking out over Sylphie's pregnancy, and fucking Lilia's having to slap her. It's like, oh yeah, okay, that's so cool to see her get more accustomed to actually just talking to Rudeus like an older brother and just being a pest little sister, just taking jabs at him and stuff. I think that's really cute. It's good because it's what Rudeus wants, right? He doesn't want like a little sister servant. He wants just a little sister, and he wants her to do what she wants and be happy. It's cool. It's nice.
But yeah, look at this. So I guess to talk about more specifically in volume 10, we had because there's the extra chapter which has Norn's perspective when she met Ruijerd and sort of showing how she came to admire him like as the second most like admirable person in her life after Paul, right? And just like him just being, he's fucking Ruijerd. He's like, I'm gonna fucking help a crying child. Are you kidding me? Just listening to her honestly and just giving her like not condescending to her because she's a child, right? And
just being able to tell her what she needs to hear better than like anyone else by just saying like, in your predicament, you just need to strive to be stronger. And part of strength comes with biting these bullets because you're too weak right now, so you have to do this. So grow stronger so you don't have to do things like this, so you can walk with the people you care about. It's like, damn, Ruijerd, bro. It's like he learned in his experience with Rudeus, like children are they're fundamentally they're human beings too. You gotta help them grow by giving them some tough love too. And Norn actually
responds to it
responds to it very, very well because Ruijerd is actually listening to her, and targeting the base of, her predicament. It's really fucking cool, and this new material to me, and I was loving it,
Yeah, because what's also
just yet another reason to love Ruijerd.
Yeah, well, but what also like hurt because I was just thinking about it from Norn's perspective, where it's like, well, one is like Paul has been like the one constant in her life, and she's having that ripped away from her. So it's like, of course, she doesn't want this to happen, no matter what. To the point that she's willing to risk her life in the Begaric continent because she wants this one constant in her life to stay with her, right? But also just the fact that like she's never going to see Paul again, and like all of her whining and like because I think it just reading it as it's like it's easy to see it from like Paul's perspective as an adult of just like, oh, this child is like not understanding the situation and needs to like let the adults speak. Like that's I think that's a reasonable like reaction to have, where it's like obviously that's because like that's what has to happen, right? She just has to have it framed correctly for her for it to happen. But also there's that fact is like this is literally the last time she's ever going to see her dad alive, and it's like there's so many things like we're gonna have one big party when we're reunited as a family. Man, it's like stop with the death.
Like Rudeus keeps like saying things like Like, I can't wait to take them all in. We got a big house for a reason, right? Taking them all in and, having a family again. It'll be just like old times in Buena Village, Oh boy. But one thing I did want to piggyback off you on the on the Rudyard stuff about Paul being like her constant like male role model and how. But I think it's also really interesting that Rudyard kind of just takes the place of that. So Norn is always in a state of like comfort being around this like fatherly figure, because that is kind of what Rudyard becomes. Like he's kind of like stepdaddy. He goes stepdaddy mode for her, and it's just like it's she's always got somewhere where she can cry to and hold, but even that leaves her, and she's left in this like cold tundra of the aura of Rudeus is everywhere, literally. Even when she goes to live at the dorms, Rudeus his aura is everywhere, because everyone talks about Rudeus, right? Because he's literally the strongest mage. It makes sense, and she's related to him, and it's just really cool to see this, because finally, when we get the scene where she finally looks at Rudeus for who he is in the moment, it's different now, because she's had to surmount these obstacles and really evaluate herself and evaluate her brother, who he is. And through that, she even learned a little bit more about, Paul's stuff that she always knew about him, but she kind of buried behind, I love my daddy. I love my daddy. She sees through Rudeus also some of Paul's weaknesses. And then it's not this thing where, now she finds comfort in now her older brother Rudeus. It's more so, this dude, he just wants to see me flourish and succeed too, just like my dad, just like Rudyard, just like all these people. He's no different. I need to stand on my own 2 feet, not just for me, but for him, because he truly does care about me as an older brother. And so it's not the same, status quo anymore. Through Rudeus doing this and her achieving growth, she realizes, I need to stand on my own 2 feet for the people that care about me, because I'm only going to end up hurting them like this if I keep doing what I'm doing. And Rudeus's conclusion at the end of this is that, Norn is truly strong, is so correct. Like, think about what she's been through, and like the conclusion she comes to, and how, and how she was able to effectively handle it kind of all on her own at her age, where Rudeus wasn't able to. Man, yeah. Like, Norn is like, she's such a cool character because she's so normal, but her mental fortitude to me is, I super resonate with that. I love Norn's character so much. I think that's stuff. I think thinking about it sequentially that way, from Paul to Rudyard, and how there's a paradigm shift with specifically her dynamic with Rudeus, that resolution, I think it's beautiful. It's what makes Mushoku Tensei one of the goats, man. It's shit like this. Oh man, it's beautiful. But yeah, you can go now. Sorry.
No, you're good. But yeah, some other just things about Volume 10 before we move on is just there's so one thing I talked about with you before that I thought was interesting, because so there's a BioShock reference where because I think he was talking about Zanoba with Julie, and he just says, oh, he put on a diving suit on him, and it's like he's call him Mr. Bubbles, and it's like to the big daddies with the little sisters, I think they're called, and I remember thinking that's odd, because so I don't know how, because like just in general, like Western games, especially violent ones, because violence is more like it's actually kind of funny how it's inversed, because obviously Japan has with adult only games, because like in America the only adult only games that have gotten like passed have been like violent ones, where sexual adult only games are not officially like sold, except very recently with Steam actually, and other online platforms in general. Like it's a very historically it hasn't been the case, where in Japan it's violence that's really hard to get. I remember hearing about GTA 5, even the adult only version is heavily censored for like a lot of there's like a torture scene apparently, and some of the other violent stuff. So I was just in general, like Western games sort of have would have a difficult attach rate to Japan, I guess. So I was just wondering if I don't know if Refugin is referencing BioShock, or if this was changed, because normally I feel like they haven't shied away from really Japanese references necessarily, like Doraemon, and even in this volume, Chapter 7 has a Doraemon reference, and then last time I mentioned some Zai-san references, and it's like this is stuff that I've seen basically none of these shows, even though they're incredibly culturally important to Japan, and they haven't shied away from referencing them. But that's probably because I feel like me as an example is like a number of people who read these are going to be at least aware of these, or at least some people like in the deeper, the nerdy, like nerdier like anti-tube circles where there's a lot of knowledge circulating and stuff and trivia. I feel like compared, but also there's also just gonna be regular old people, relatively, people just pick it up off the shelf, So anyway, so I was just wondering if I don't know if that like because if the author is probably a nerd, it's just how
he is definitely definitely.
Right. So it's like if he that would make sense, but it was just more of a like jumping off point of like I don't know how popular BioShock is in Japan and just from what I know. So part of what I'm basing my thoughts on this is in Chiyo-chan's school route. The main character is a gamer who plays. She plays a lot of Western games, and there's like at least a couple chapters where she just bitches about how difficult that is because of like having to buy expensive language packs and playing online but not understanding the players she's fighting against because they're English or they speak English and stuff. And again, like I mentioned with the violence and censorship, it's like there's just not always. I don't know. It is what it is. So I was just thinking, it was just an interesting thing to see referenced because I just don't know how popular it is in Japan. So I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there because it was a weird little thing that I thought about.
Nice. I did want to mention just the ending volume 10 stuff. Man, the stuff it really hits. Like Rudeus being kind of disappointed that Eris is not part of the picture anymore, and then. Because Rudeus is similar to Eris a little bit, in how he's a little bit more instinctual than someone like Rudeus, like how he already is suspecting that there's more to Eris's disappearance than what Rudeus is giving credit for, and how he's
I did appreciate him like planting the seed for Rudy because obviously I know what's going to happen. I just don't know how it's going to happen at all with Rudy and Eris reconciling. But it's like, Rudeus plants a little seed there where it's like, that doesn't sound right. Maybe you're completely wrong. And Rudy's like, huh.
Yeah, maybe I am, and then he makes the promise to him, like, I'll at some point I'll talk to her. Like, I'll give you that much, Rudeus. Like, I'll talk to her. And he's content with that much. And, and it's so cool to see Rudeus like a little bit saddened to see that Rudeus seems a little bit upset about it to the point where even in their their farewell, Rudeus is like, hey, like what's the long face, man? We'll see each other again. And then Rudeus is like, oh, okay, yeah, we will see each other again. And I think it's just it's nice, it's cool. I love Rudeus' presence in the story. But yeah, the Eris, the talking about Eris, that's a kind of a, it's there's a lot of scenes like this in Mushoku Tensei where like I'm like on the edge of my seat, but it's literally just like a conversation. So yeah, it's just one of those moments that I wanted to take note of because of just how it makes me feel. I like it a lot. But yeah, that's mostly all I really wanted to say for Volume 10.
I have a couple little things. So like one is Rudy and Luke had a duel where because like Luke sort of like being this longtime friend of Fitz and wanting to see her protected, like just has he wants to test Rudy's strength, but in his like own way, like specifically as a swordsman, because like obviously it's like he knows Rudy's strong because he's already defeated Bodygotti at this point. It's like he's just the strongest person in the school basically, but like I don't know, I like just Rudy always approaching things very carefully, and then it's like because even he's especially his swordsmanship is like something he's practiced at a lot, even though he's not good at it at all, right? So like I was literally like I don't remember how this goes in the anime, like there's reason to see, but he's not challenged at all because he has the demon eye, like, and he defeats Luke very comfortably, right? And like Sylphie's like, it never crossed her mind that I might lose, right? Like she just has such utter faith into him and awareness of Luke's skills as well. So she, she's just like, Rudy's not going to lose to Luke. It's just a good little, yeah. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I mean, and Rudeus is so like not confident in himself too that like I think it's involved. I don't remember where Rudeus thinks this, but he's thinking about like all of the powerful kind of swordsmen he's come across, or just weapon wielding combatants. He's like, I never beat Ghislaine, never beat Paul, never beat Eris, never beat Rudeus. And I was like, wait, Rudeus. I was like, whoa, wait. You did beat Eris though, at least one time. When this fresh off your demon eye, you handily beat her at that, like in a sword duel. Like, do you not remember that? It's like you can't say you never beat Eris, but maybe he was saying that once Eris like became a warrior in Ruijerd's eye. But no, that happened a little bit too late too. Maybe a little bit before that. It started up again where every time they duel, Eris would win. Technically speaking, like there was at least one time we saw Rudeus beat Eris. So I thought that was kind of funny because he's like, I never beat because Eris never beat Eris.
Rudy's full of comments like that, and every time they happen, I just want to like shove Rudy in a locker. I swear to God.
Yeah, I know, right? Because there's literally another scene like that too, where he's telling, he's thinking, he's like, it was in volume 11 when they're him and Elinalise are being recruited by that merchant. He's like, well, if anything bad happens, Elinalise is, an S rank adventurer, and I am a, Saint class water magician. I was like, Rudeus. I was like,
you're downplaying yourself.
You're more than that, bro. What do you mean? You became Saint class at 5 years old, bro? How long ago was that, bro?
Dude, did he just forget that his he literally talked with Janius about his stone cannon being emperor tier. He's just like, are you sure you want to advertise that though? It's like he can still think that to himself mentally, but it's like I understand him not saying it out loud, but inwardly he should be like, yeah, I'm definitely emperor tier, at least in Earth Mage, right? Earth magic. It's but then he does. That's not what he thinks about when he thinks about himself, right? He thinks I'm a Saint tier water mage because that's the title Roxy gave him, right?
Exactly.
Of course he cares more about that. Well, the other line I was saying, when he was talking with Ariel in chapter 1, and she says because he says something like, I'm fine with serving you in official capacity, and Ariel's like, unnecessary. Your power is far too great for my hands to contain. And Rudy's like, I don't think I'm that strong. And I'm like, Rudy, shut up. I'm going to find a locker and your head is going in that. He's just like, not that I could actually do it, but like the vibe, that's the idea is more what but yeah, and just like Rudy and Sylvie are very good. They're very cute. They just have lots of good interactions, lots of just casual sex, lots of just whatever possible.
Epic.
What was it?
She's good. One funny scene though is when Nanahoshi is talking about how I couldn't wait to get in there. Like, you guys don't fucking calm down. I can hear you every fucking night. You know how that made me feel? I was like, I had a boyfriend in my past life. I thought that was really funny. I was like, God damn, that's.
She's so sexually frustrated. Because I also what struck out to me is when Rudy brought all of his friends to help her, and she's like, "Oh, did you bring everybody? Did you bring me here so you could all could ravish me?" And I'm like, "What, Nanahoshi? What? I know you're in a bad place right now, but you need to calm down." So yeah, that was. Oh, and also Ariel just gifted. Here's a dildo. Here you go. I don't think you need it, but just in case.
I forgot about that. That's so crazy. Nice.
Lots of little good moments, and then just another reference is it just stood out to me because I've read Journey to the West, but they mentioned Nanahoshi singing Monkey, which is so that is it's a Japanese live adaptation of Journey to the West, basically. So I'm familiar with it. I might watch it at some point eventually because even though I didn't really like Journey to the West that much because it just old novels are rough. But I'm interested in Journey to the West, and its adaptations. I'm playing Black Myth Wukong right now, so it's just something because I do kind of know the story, so it's neat, So I think the last thing we have to talk about is the Eris chapter. That said, I don't have that much to say about it, but there's an Eris chapter, of her just well, especially because we have the North Saint, or what was his North King or Emperor, North Emperor.
The North Emperor, yeah.
We talked about him, but I don't think we talked about him on the podcast because I remember I feel like we had this conversation before, but I'm realizing that was off recording. But I just love Eris's I don't give a fuck about you. You aren't Orsted. Get out of my fucking face. Just that attitude. But of course, the reason he was brought there was to train Eris in other sword styles. And Golfalion, I don't know, especially his comment on him training Ghislaine wrong, because it was interesting because she taught Eris the importance of thinking, and that was what she was taught, and she did become an incredibly powerful swords woman for it. but he's thinking like, well, your natural instinct was so good, it might have been better for you to continue down that path. And so he's sort of like I don't know, it kind of ties into what I was talking about with Ghislaine, sort of like, the experience of those who came before helping the younger generation like go further than they ever could, kind of like I brought up the One Piece example with Oda talking about the Beatles. And so I was just thinking about like with Galfalion sort of comparing like how he raised, like what he learned as a teacher from Ghislaine, he's now applying that to Eris, right? Where he's not really giving her strict instruction because she's such an instinctual fighter. He's not reforging her like he did Ghislaine, because he did make a very good swordsman out of Ghislaine. But with Eris, he's trying to make an exceptional swordsman, right? Like someone who can fight Orsted, right? Someone who can maybe even surpass him. And the only way he can do that is through doing this instinctual fighting, and he's very much kind of pushing her down that path. So I just thought it's a neat chapter. Not as good as the other Eris one, but it's more Eris. Can't complain.
I will say, this is the chapter 2 where she's like she is continuously practicing her sword swings, right?
Yes.
I actually disagree with you. I like this just as much as any of them.
Okay.
Maybe more because it resonates with me a lot.
Okay.
Specifically, Eris's monologue about how. So Eris is talking about how growing up, she did study. She was really bad at it. She hated it, yada yada. But the sword came so naturally. She loved it. Everything was great to her, and it was so easy. It was so seamless. But now that she's trying to excel, I mean, really excel, become a master of the craft, or at least attempt the pilgrimage, she's like, oh my God, this is not only insanely difficult, but this is the hardest thing I've ever tried to do. And at this point, do I even understand this sword anymore? Was I ever even really gifted at it? Did it really come naturally to me? Doesn't really seem like reality anymore. I don't know. I've hit a wall. I don't know what I'm doing. As someone who loves writing and loves concocting, right now, especially in my life, I feel that. So I just feel inadequate right now in a lot of what I'm doing. So it really resonated with me. And I was like, yeah. And especially her looking at a master like Galfarion, like how I look at someone like Ichiro Oda, like it's a very similar, thought. It's cool. I really resonate with that and that Eris monologue, and that was new material for me because that wasn't in the manga. Yep. That whole monologue about that, and I was like, oh, that's so beautiful coming from Eris, and like this revelation about her. The inner machinations going into her struggle of ascension. She's, by all respects, one of the best swordsmen in the world, being a sword saint. Most people do not become sword saint, right?
Right.
It's very hard. And she became a sword saint immediately, but to her, like, she is like lacking in every category, and she just doesn't. Well,
not only that, but like, what, in a year she became another sword saint, in a different sword style,
North Saint, right? Like that's crazy. But here's the thing, and it's what's cool is Albert gives her something brand new, right? It's like she's never seen someone like him. She's never faced an opponent as tough as him. So it's like, obviously she would start growing a lot more rapidly facing someone like Albert. So I don't know. Albert is just a very interesting character in general. He's really cool. And then the conversation between Ghislaine and Gaul is really funny. How like Gaul's like, no, like you don't understand. Eris needs to do this. She's like, but master, like, why though? And he's like, sigh, I forget. I always got to explain everything to you in adequate detail and what you can easily digest. And it's so cute how at the end, like Gaul can tell she's like content because she starts wagging her tail. I was like, oh, it's so cute, so cute.
But yeah, no, I don't know. I like the building up what you were saying, or pointing out rather, because I didn't really dwell on it, I guess, that much. But just like, the like talent, the sort of talent, hard work, which people see as like a dichotomy, but it's like, it's really that, like, no, the people who are even like, like Eris, in order, like, she can pick up things very quickly, but like, no talented person ever just got to the top of something just on talent alone. I don't think, right? I think that the people who like, if you look in, like, the reality I'm talking about, like, if you look at the people who do really well, it's like, they also put in an insane amount of hard work, right? Like, sure. But anyway, it's good. But I think that does about cover it for volume 10. So we're one-third of the way through, less than one-third of the way through the discussion, page count-wise. That said, we have already talked about some of the stuff going forward. But
The big point of interest in Volume 11, there's two things, right? It's the journey with Elinalise, with Rudeus, and then before that, it's a lot of the Norn stuff.
Yes.
There's some Aisha, but mostly Norn. And which I've already covered a lot of, actually, at this point. My previous conversation. That was the most interesting thing I had to say.
To talk about some other non-things, well, because there's the... well, one thing we've talked about like the quote-unquote cringe comedy of Mushoku Tensei. I'm not sure if I'd call it cringe comedy, but it's definitely like Rudy being an extreme fucking degenerate and that being very funny, but also in a way that's like, Rudy, what the fuck is wrong with you? Because Volume 10 literally opens with like, and it's in the anime, him cutting out this vaginal blood stain of his bed sheets.
Yeah, he needs a little bit of help. He's a little bit at the top. We give him a pass though because he's goated. He's a goated MC, but sometimes he goes a little bit too far. Of course,
that's a little weird no matter how you slice it out of the bed
at the end of the day, I would not put it past someone like Eris, for instance, to cut out like a cum stain from Rudeus. And honestly, because I have so much affection
that doesn't
for
make
Eris,
it better. That doesn't make it better.
Honestly, I'd fault Eris for it less than I would fault Rudeus. Just a little bit of bias, I know, but
I don't mind it. I just think it's funny, and I like to bring it up because it's funny. Like that's how I respond to humor, and like because I like to like with the it's just here's the joke. Let's laugh about it, right? Well, because there's also the panty bag, which watching it for the first time in the anime really stood out to me because they because I got to watch it like from the perspective of someone who knows nothing, right? Where it's like, oh, here's our gift, don't open it in public, wink wink, and he's like, oh, what's this mysterious bag? I'm just gonna ignore it. And then he gets called to the fucking student council president's office, and Ariel's like, so Rudy, we have a problem with Linnea and Aisha and Persena. They're taking panties from girls, and we don't know why. And then he's like, "Oh, that lumpy soft bag." And I just remember like having to pause it because when it clicked in my head, I was just like, "No, no," because it's just like he just walked into Ariel's office with a bomb, basically. And I'm just thinking about like as I just imagine like all the ways this could go horribly, horribly wrong, and it's just like I had to stop for a second to pause it and just be like, ah. But it's but then he even just like makes these little mental asides that are just like that. He's like he comes up with the idea of like soaking the panties in alcohol and making panty beer, and I'm like. Yeah. or even like after that, because normally I'd have huffed Persena's bra, but I don't have the time right now, and I'm like because she gave him he acquired her bra, and it just like that's his first thought. I'm like, dude.
It's not about all the dastardly things we think. It's about our actions. What we choose to do with those thoughts, whether we act them out or not. That's the in defense of Rudeus right there.
I agree. No, I don't think it needs defense. I just think it's funny. It's a fictional story, right? It's like, and he's been a weird guy since chapter 1. It's like these things aren't like it's just if anything it's just like it's just a part of who he is, right? And it's like it doesn't have to be something that brings harm to people. Like in fact, if anything with the Lilina and Persena stuff, like as explained, it's like like it wasn't as bad as initially like posed to Rudy because like obviously the way that it was that Ariel heard about it, it was like, oh, they're bullying girls to get to into this, and but it's like no, they were asking and they were offering exchanges, like it's weird, but like technically consensual, and so and it's like they were able to resolve this situation amicably, and they reason it's like then it's probable that the girls, because obviously Rudy would highly disagree with them doing something hurtful or harmful, right? And he probably would have like disciplined them in some way because like he's the boss of the delinquents of the school somehow, right? But and it was just a funny situation. And but of course it also factored into the Norn stuff a bit because like he's just like walking through the hallways and she just like glare at him and he's like, what the fuck did I do? And it's like, well, it's not what you did, not directly. So oh, you also had the scene with Zanaba choking his Ginger, his knight, and him just like that was just like Jesus Christ, a little scary to just being a noble, and just the way that she just totally accepts it, and like that was my fault, and it's like I don't. That's a personal disagreement, and a personal disagreement of Rudy's too. Like, he's in my camp of just like, this is a little fucked up, actually. This servo, I don't know, just the way, obviously, like, it's a feudal society, so it has this weight on master-servant relationships that nowadays, like, we're very critical of, I would say. But like, and Rudy has that more modern idea of things, and like with Aisha, he has to like. He literally I'm sure he'd rather her just go to school and be a normal kid, but she's like, no, I want to serve you. I don't want like this is the path in life she desires, and he literally could not he could not win that fight, right? And
part of why he couldn't win the fight, I think, is really interesting, is that he's thinking, oh, indoctrination from Lilia, obviously. However, what he doesn't know is how much of an impact he had on Aisha whenever he saved her back a few years ago, right? Where she was like, "Oh, my brother is amazing, and he is epic, and he is like I would love to like be of use to someone like this, like he's here to, and part of that a little like while it's played for gags a little bit, to Aisha it might be as real as Rudeus's affections for Sylphie, where she legitimately is like trying to entice him sexually, because she might have at least a little bit of romantic feelings for him. Obviously, Rudeus is never going to oblige for obvious reasons, but because he's not near as degenerate as he was in his previous life, but still degenerate.
Well, he even says like, I like the family the way it was, right? Or like, because he doesn't want to.
But I would say part of that, at least from Aisha's perspective, is real, and that's, she wants to do this because she wants to do this. None of it is really Lilia's indoctrination, fueling her desires, and that's another reason why she, and I think Aisha becomes more comfortable in her own unique position because she actually starts asking for things, right? Like, hey, I want to do plants, and she's putting stuff on her maid uniform, something she knows. She probably obviously knows that Lilia would never allow something like this. Putting little designs on your outfit. No, you're supposed to like be prim proper. A servant. No, but she's doing that because I think she slowly but surely again sees herself as not just the maid, but Rudeus's little sister first and foremost. It comes up in the way she talks to him too. I think it's really cute. I think it's really cool. And Lilia is also really interesting too, because she's very similar to Ginger in that, like, if Rudeus did that to her, she would probably stick around too. Like, as in, like, if he did something, kind of like similar to what Zenobia did. Like, I could see Lilia like not walking away after that, just because she feels like eternally indebted to Rudeus for what he did for her when he was a kid, right? That like unwavering loyalty, so much so that she was willing to just like separate herself with Zenith from the family, and of course Rudeus refuses for obvious reasons. But that sort of like undying loyalty, that undying fealty, it is cool to see it here, because this is not just fantasy, it's more like medieval in its and its practices. We see that in the world. It's unique, it's cool, and that goes as far as Elinalise's conversation with Rudeus about monogamy and all that stuff, and but we'll get to that. But just elements that you can only have
before
like
I think
this.
Like the sort of prelude to the Norn stuff is we get the sort of conflict with them having to take the test, and because he wants them to, because to him, like, he comes from a world where school is basically mandatory in many most of the developed world, pretty much, if not all of the developed world, and much of the world in general, like, desires school because it gives you knowledge, it gives you opportunities, right? So it's like, in his mind, he wants his sisters to have those opportunities, but like, as like, I like the conversation he has with Sylphie, where it's like, well, Aisha's actually she's really smart, like, she could probably succeed at anything she puts her mind to, right? So it's like, she doesn't really need school, and this is what she wants to do, right? So she's satisfied. But like, the way I don't know, the sort of like with Norn, it's like, because with Aisha, she got excelled at the test, so in her mind it's like, okay, because I'm good at this thing, I can get like I'll do like Rudy will do like let me do what I want, but then Norn wants to go to the dorms, and then Rudy lets like the sort of like she has the line about like, are you being nicer to Norn because my mom's a mistress, like I'm not your actual sibling in the same way that Norn is, right? And just I don't know, I think especially I think the aspect of, and why I'm maybe a bit more like equal to them is probably because like the way they connect with my personal circumstances a bit personally is because so there was an incident my brother had in 5th grade because he had the same teacher that I had in 5th grade, and his teacher compared my brother negatively to me because I performed better in school. I was just I was a good kid. My brother was less like he just wasn't as a fit for the school system, which is completely normal. The school system is bad unless you're a very specific kind of person, and so like and that was the case at home too, where I was just I was better at school, I was more well behaved, so like basically, so yeah, my teacher compared my brother to me, and that he didn't react to that very well, and my parents went to school to talk to him, and once he saw them, he was like, I know exactly what you're here about, because he realized he made a mistake, but like I just thought, think about that, and how because obviously I don't really know how, well, because the other half of it is that I was also very kind of mean to my brother a lot of the time because I was bigger than him, so it's just like, and I think about our relationship and stuff, and we're on good terms now, but I it was just hard for me not to think about that with Norn and Aisha, because they have the extra dynamic of them being because there's not really an older younger dynamic with them. Because they're basically the same age, but there's more the the true daughter, and then the illegitimate daughter, right? It's not really, but the I'm not sure how else to comfortably put it, right? And like with Aisha like trying to excel more to be accepted because she feels like the other in the family, and Norn having to like sort of bear the burden of having this sister who's just like way better than her at everything, and so it just like, I don't know, I thought it made me think more about my circumstances as a sibling, and stuff, so it's it hurts.
And even without those personal, and which by the way I completely the same. I'm a year older than my brother, and we went through some of the same teachers, and it's the same thing. Like he was much worse in school than I was.
Okay.
I was built more for school. He wasn't. That's very interesting. We had a very similar. So, and I was also pretty mean to him too. Interesting. But and I think even without those personal experiences, the dynamic on its face is just very interesting, right? Like that the reason why Aisha's doing all this and trying to put herself so far above Norn is because she wants to make up for not being blood related to Zenith, right? The first woman. Whereas Norn is being hurt because of Aisha just desperately wants to be seen as equal to Norn, and which makes Norn look at Aisha as so far above her. So it's unequal even in Norn's eyes. So to both sisters, they're very unequal in the familial dynamic. It's just a really cool, really cool.
No, I really want to see how it, because every time they argue, it's like, love each other. You're the only like I mean, like obviously Rudy's their sibling too, but obviously he's like not like, he's just so like, by virtue of like having a much longer lived experience through his reincarnation, he's almost a second dad to them. Right, like that's especially like the fact that he's the one providing and caring for them right here, right? Is like that, like even though he is literally their brother, it's like it's not quite an older brother relationship, right? Like so in a way, like Norn and Aisha are kind of like the only sibling that they have, and for much of their life that's been the case, even though they were separated, like because Rudy was sent away, so it's like their earliest memories, like they don't really have, like Norn's real first memory of Rudy is him beating the shit out of Paul, right? Aisha's real first memory of Rudy was her being saved, and of course that affects their dynamic with him, right? So I don't know. So there's just like whenever they argue, I'm just like, no, get along, please. You're the only siblings you have. You're tearing me apart. I'm not even in your story. I just hurt. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm about to self-insert real quick.
Just there's words I want to say, but I can't say them. Rudy, say them for me, please, or I'll fucking shove you in a locker. I swear to God. But yeah, it's they have a good dynamic, and
And then, this volume is when the announcement of the child. It's like, oh my god, Sylvie's pregnant.
Let's go!
And Rudeus, he's crying. It's a happy little moment. He wants a kid. He never got to be a dad in his previous life, and so he's looking forward to it. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I have anything to say about the Norn stuff, because just her, I don't know, like getting her perspective was really good, and just her, like, I don't know, I love how just like it's literally just as simple as her just like you said, looking at Rudy and like understanding him, right, and seeing how, because like her first, she saw him fighting Paul, and she heard about him being this basically delinquent king of the school and like the strongest mage, but then she sees him being so much weaker than that image is, right? Like, it's like obviously like seeing him at the house and him being again this stand-in paternal figure is like it's like that's not really who he is. So it's just really good. Also, just a little side note is there's Marissa, the her roommate, and I just like how she's not obligated to like help Norn study or anything, but like she's living with this girl, so she just helps her study, and I don't know, she's just cool friend. The whole scene where Rudy goes into the classroom assuming he knows what's wrong, and just watching the reality crash around him of just like someone in this room is responsible for my sister holding herself in a room, and it's like, well, you're not wrong. It's just hard.
You just need a mirror.
Yeah, exactly. And like just that awkwardness of just like him, like knowing exactly what's wrong and him just assuming, because he's seeing his own prior experiences, right? And he's trying to be the person that he might have needed at the time, and that's what he does do with Norn. Like, he doesn't, because he thinks to his experience as a shut-in and thinks like there's really nothing I can say, because and he really doesn't say anything. He just like he's just there for her, and that happens to be enough for her, right? So it's really good, and
it's some good fucking shit. That's just Mushoku Tensei. That's what it's all about. I also family, son.
Yeah, I also love how because they talk about Ruijerd, and like Norton sort of taking over with regards to like the Ruijerd propaganda. But I also love the little line where it's like, no fair, I never got to sit in Ruijerd's lap. And it's like, she's so jealous of Rudy. It's good. They're the good siblings. I keep wanting to call them twins. They're very not twins, but they're close. It's not often you get siblings. It's literally impossible to get siblings this close in age without them being twins, if anything, or at least or without them being half siblings, right? So it's like, because maybe that's because in my mind, because again, like going back to the equality thing, it's like I see them as equal because Rudy wants to see them as equal, because like that's how they're like there's there's inherent bias against like servitude and servileness as being like lesser, right? But it's like, Aisha isn't lesser, she's a part of the family, but like because of that sort of bias, it's like hard for her not to feel inferior for it, or because of like Lilia being the sort of potential homewrecker, and like it's so juicy. I want to see. I really want to. I imagine the next volume is just going to be like more domestic stuff, with just like because there's so much to unpack after this reading, with Rudy or Roxy, now Rudy with Roxy and Sylphie, and now the like the two girls have to do their thing, and there's all these other characters. It's like I might read. I need to eat food after we finish, but after that I might be reading. So it is what it is.
You need a little pick me up so that you get the energy to read.
I literally just literally 10-15 minutes before starting this recording, I came off a 3-hour live stream. So
Oh shit.
Yeah. It's all good. Anyway,
hopefully the peak fiction will get you through to the end of this. I don't really have much more to say on the stuff before they go out on their journey.
I'm looking, and it's like that's about it, I think.
I love that it was Norn who kind of compelled Rudeus essentially to make the hard decision. Mm-hmm. Where she says like, if who but you can really ensure that this thing ends in success, like you're the strongest person here, right? It's like, and not only are like you're directly related, just like I am, and you're the strongest. Like, like, come on, dude. It's like, and then Rudeus is like, oh yeah, true. Like, yeah, you know, when you put it that way, you know, fuck the man god. I'm gonna have regrets no matter what. I don't really want to fuck around with Lenny in person either. Like, that's not very tantalizing. So, you know, fuck it. We move.
Yeah, no, well, especially Norn caring, like, obviously, like, wanting to go to help, but not, even though she doesn't have the power, like, that's what ultimately motivates him into action, because he's the one who got the letter. No one else got the letter except for, you know, Guy sent it specifically to Rudy because he's the one, you know, who had the most capability to help. And so that's, well, I imagine I cut this from the anime, but with Elinalise, her, like, I'm gonna go save Zenith because she's my friend. And then she goes to talk to Cliff, and she's just like, I'm sorry, Rudy, I can't. I love Cliff too much. I can't stand to be away from him. I imagine they cut the back and forth on that just because it's like, you know, it's very good and funny, but it's also like, I imagine like in a limited runtime, it's like, no, Ellen, she's gonna go anyway, so it's like there's no point.
Yeah. No, I completely understand the cut too, but it's great to have here. Yeah, for sure. Oh, and then getting that final dude. Yeah, Cliff becomes such a Giga Chad. Like, when you come back, we're gonna get married. Like, bravo, Cliff, bravo. Yeah.
Let's go. Also, apparently, naming a child before you leave is a death flag, and like Rudy was about to trigger it, and they're like, "No, just come back safely." It's like, "Oh, okay, well, it's fine."
Name it Lucy.
And let's see. So yeah, and then we get the actual journey stuff, which learning about the Begaret content is neat, and I'm pretty sure all the stuff with the merchant and the other the bodyguards, that's completely cut from the anime, right?
Yeah,
okay, because I don't remember it at all, so I was like, I struggling with my memory, or just, you know, bad memory, or just not in the anime.
All the stuff is cut, and it's a little bit of a shame, because I think it's really, really cool to see the culture, to see these moments, and especially because we get a really cool scene out of it with the ambush that happens, which obviously is completely cut from the anime. Yeah, and I think it's, you know, a really cool scene where Rudeus is like probably in one of the most dire moments to date. You know, risk of being completely, you know, killed. Like, they had poison weapons, poison arrows. An arrow almost hit him. Yeah, you know, and him, well, potentially being able to take care of it with, you know, a big spell. And how, you know, and how it wasn't even him that notes it, but it was someone, you know, not even affiliated with him. Someone like, she's like, well, based on what I fucking saw you do to get away, you should have been able to just fucking wipe him out. And it's like this really cool, like, it makes Rudeus think, like, yeah, man, maybe if I had more confidence, I could have saved that dude's life. Like, and I, you know, and we'd have an easier time of it right now. Fuck, yeah, I don't know. And it's,
because especially the way he's like, he doesn't want to kill humans, right? Like, instinctually, like, that's something that he's adverse to, right? And that was interesting to think about, because, like, God, we're not even halfway done with the story, so how is that gonna, you know, change?
Yeah.
So
he doesn't he don't be killing people, and Elinalise says he's fine that way. So, you know what? I trust her word. I trust my queen's word.
There's also, I think, the succubi are kind of like, they're just a neat little world building thing, because they're so, like, the way this sort of like adventure culture and warrior culture has sort of like become to revolve around dealing with succubi without magic, I thought was neat. Because, like, one is like, they're the Great Rat's natural enemy, but, like, fucking Rudy just being and Elinalise getting this like story of like, hey, here's the things Rudy said to me while he was under the influence of the succubi, and he's like, just embarrassing cringe story of his past. You know, and of course the way we find out about this, like, how, the succubi control men, so that means they need women to have sex with, because if they don't have detoxification magic, which we didn't at this time period, so like, they just have this. But then also she's like, I don't like mages, so I don't want to fuck you though. With talking to Rudy, that was pretty good. Rip Bozo.
Rip Bozo. And kind of like the whole revelation through her visceral reaction to that guy's death is like, so if they have a child with someone, those particular men matter a little bit more than he previously suspected, given that everyone's kind of sleeping around. And no one really has like a monogamous family. They have like a tribe where they're built as warriors. So and like all that cultural stuff in Begaret is really cool to get as well. Yeah.
One little tidbit to end off, or one more tidbit before we get to the last extra chapter. And because when Rudy ran, I think it was, I forget if it was the ants or the behemoth, but he's like, I think it was the ants, because he had this instinctual, like, how do we win this fight? Like, because Elinalise noted, like, you have a look on your face that's like you're preparing to fight. And he's thinking about how to win this encounter. And I was just thinking about how, because he even brings up the idea of EXP, and I was just thinking about how it's like he's still thinking about, because being an otaku in his previous life, he still thinks about things in terms of game logic sometimes, like because, and that's even about a worthwhile lesson in video games, where it's like even if there's potential gain, you don't need to do every fight, because you're going to lose resources and or time, and it's like depending on the game, obviously, so I just noted that. I was like, oh, that's a little neat, because obviously, as he points out, it's like, oh yeah, no, we don't have to fight these ants, well, not yet, because some ants attack the town later, but don't worry about it. One thing I noticed, I don't know if you caught this, because they run into the behemoth. And they're like,
I was literally just about to mention this.
Okay, yeah, because to explain is because it's like, oh, no one's ever killed a behemoth before, and we've never found a body before. Next volume, this city is nestled in the bones of a behemoth, and I'm like,
yep. And not only that, who took it down, but the previous North god Kalman. Yeah.
So I thought that was weird that they instantly. Well, if they didn't bring it up before, then I wouldn't have thought it was worth mentioning it. Well, it's neat. It's neat. I mean, I think town building the husk of a giant thing is cool. But I just thought it was weird
because they saw Rudeus saw one of them.
Yeah, they saw the behemoth. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Rudeus was like, man, I can't imagine.
I'm sure Rudy could manage.
Maybe.
He's. Suspicious HotBoySpicy noises.
Well, I mean, I promise I'm not alluding to anything right now. I genuinely, because when I think of one of the 7 major world powers, but maybe it wasn't a hard battle. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was a feat for most people, but for like the North god, he was like, just light work, maybe, I don't know. Because whenever I think of reading that, when I'm like, oh, the North god to this, I was like, okay, well, Rudeus ain't no North god. He's very, very strong, but Rudeus ain't no North god.
Well, as he mentions, like, his mana capacity is god level, but he's not gonna. He's like, I don't think I could be that in any other way. And I'm like,
well, we get the perfect demonstration that literally, in Volume 12, where they're fighting a Hydra, and Rudeus is struggling. He's got other people around him that have to save his ass nonstop, and Paul has to die to save his ass too.
Yeah.
So like someone like a North god, while his mana capacity is god level, he is not in totality he is not god level. He just isn't. Someone like the North god would never make the mistake Rudeus made. Someone like the North god could take on this monster solo, probably.
Yeah. Well, of course, there's also an effect, because we're talking about a monster that literally negates magic, right? Like. He's
true.
So it's like Rudy is very specifically at a huge disadvantage, where the North god wouldn't be, because he's a swordsman, right? So hypothetically, an Earth god would also struggle in a similar way. And then now maybe there's some other mechanics that could be at work there, but
matchup would matter a lot. True.
Right. Yeah. So anyway,
indeed.
Yeah. Lastly, there's the Norn chapter where she has a neat scene with Cliff that was really cool, because especially Cliff being like, well, he's protecting my family with Elinalise, so I'm gonna protect Rudy's family while he's gone. Because especially think about how Rudy comes home and he's just like terrified that something horrible happened, because he's thinking about the man god's words, obviously, right? Where it's like, you're gonna have regrets if you go to beggar it. And it's like, well, oh fuck, what if something horrible happened while I was gone? Like, was there a miscarriage? Did Sylphie die? And he's just like, doomer, just thinking of the worst things. But no, Cliff is there. He's protecting them, and he's not a slouch. Like, he's not quite adventure material yet, but he is really powerful. So and never mind, Sylphie's also strong on her own too. But then again, also physical power doesn't stop all threats, so to speak. So yeah.
I also want to take note. Wait, do I have anything to add on to the final chapter, the special chapter in Volume 11 with Norn? I think it's really good. I think it's really cute. I think it's good for Cliff too. And I do love the how Cliff, even to a little girl, is still the same haughty motherfucker. He talks to the same to everyone. The only one that's an exception to this rule is just Elinalise. That's just so funny to me. Even to a little girl, he's like, well, I'm a genius. So it's just like, oh, come on, Cliff. Mm-hmm. And like Norn is trying so hard not to just like, be upset by his verbiage. It's funny. But no, it's a cute chapter. I like it too. It's good for Cliff and Norn.
Yeah.
Norn gets 2 fucking chapters back to back. It's crazy. Well, 2 special ending volume chapters back to back. I mean, but good stuff. What I was going to mention though was the beginning of volume 12. I don't know if you recognize this. The description of Rappan and how it was written by Bloody Kant. This is not the first time we've gotten a city description by the man himself, Bloody Kant.
Oh.
I don't remember which one it was. I think there's 1 or 2 other times we got that. Especially, and it's from Wandering the World. Like there was another one, I think, when he was still in the Demon Continent. At least one other one when they were in the Demon Continent, but there might have been. I think there was one in the Demon Continent, and then one, I think, sometime in Millis. So I think this is the 3rd time we've seen a description from Bloody Kant.
I did not clock that.
And I love these. So I've seen this in, for instance, like One Piece. I love this little motif authors will do where they'll have like this fictional character write about a fictional something, and and then give them credit. You see this in One Piece at the beginning of Skypiea, right? Before Jaya, where I don't remember anything is possible in this world, and it's by
I would have been such a flex if I could remember the name, but it's escaping me. I've bragged before about being really good at remembering One Piece character. Galley? No, no, it's not Galley. Nope, I can't remember. I'm doomed. Okay, I give up. I lost. I was gonna look it up, but it's like I don't need to. It's not that important.
No. But just a little interesting note. This is the first time we've seen that.
Before we get to because I'm just going chapter by chapter at this point because I'm going through my notes. One thing I noted the first thing I noted after Ryufujin being a hack and forgetting that no behemoth has ever been killed. No, unless there's a reason. I don't know if there's a reason why Elinalise and Rudy would think that before having that immediately subverted with no addressing that. I don't know. It was
it's for North Godheit for North. All for North.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. But anyway, so they talk about mutations, like the idea that monsters are mutated off of like mana, like basically I guess mana influences monsters and beasts and they become monsters, or I guess not just beasts like treants or like trees. Like they talked about before about how like loggers having to take trees not for wood but to keep treants from forming. I remember that being a thing in volume 7. I want to say, maybe I'm misremembering. But and Rudy also brings up exceptional demons, and I had the thought of like I wonder if like blessed children or cursed children, as it would be, are also mutations of a sort for humans. I don't know if those mechanics are actually connected, but I was just like, oh, I wonder, because
true,
So, but I don't know if that's ever touched on directly or not, but it was a thought.
An interesting one too. Yes. Like you're onto something.
Okay. All right, but and then we get Paul and him just like being so out of it with like the the situation being bad and literally just not even believing that Rudy could actually be there until he is, and then he's like, oh shit, you're real.
Oh shit, I'm not dreaming. What the fuck? Why are you here, bro? What the fuck?
Good stuff.
I mean, you can't blame him. He was sleeping, and then he wakes up, and it's not supposed to be the time Rudeus is even here. It's way before the time, the expected time. So you can't really blame the guy,
Mm-hmm.
But I love that even when he's dreaming, he's like, I'm so sorry, I'm such a useless father. Like that's the only thing he can muster is just like this pathetic, shell himself. But then when he wakes up, he shows like the totality of what he is. That he's still, got that resolute mindset, like, no, I'm gonna find Zenith, and I believe that he'll still be alive. Good fucking shit. And it's a great reunion, seeing Paul interact, Lilia and him, and how they're talking like bros, like back in Buena Village, and Lilia is getting the short end of the stick because Paul is literally being very explicit in their sexual with their sexual relation, and how Lilia is apparently aggressive in bed. Interesting, Ryufujin.
What did he mean by this? No. Well, one thing I was going to note is just how like Rudy brings this such a breath of air to their efforts because he's got like the scrolls. It's like, oh shit, we don't have to carry torches with these light spells, or the he has the fucking the labyrinth, the book that has like it's the fucking cheat manual for the labyrinth that they're literally delving in. It's like, wait, we're going through this literal dungeon? Amazing. That these adventures in the past weren't able to conquer.
So Paul, you suck compared to your son. He has to hear that a lot. Yeah.
So, just like, really good stuff with, and on top of that, just like, him and Elinalise being just incredibly, skilled and having this, I already talked about Elinalise, like forgiving Paul, which, she recognized that he grew and she grew herself, so it's like, it's just neat little tidy resolution and just very mature too,
I will note that there is a section where Rudeus is like taking note of Talhand. He's like, the way Talhand is looking at me, man, is just like, he gives me some weird vibes, and I don't know what to say about it. I think it's really funny. It's like, what the fuck is that about?
Well, he's definitely the most mysterious one. As far as like, because we know like nothing of his backstory aside from like he was in the adventuring party and he has skills, like he uses magic, and like we know he uses from before that he uses armor because he can't skillfully dodge out of stuff, so he just tanks it. He's probably gay. Because like you mentioned, succubi don't work on him, and like as you were saying, like I forgot about that with him like paying attention to Rudy. It's like, as you're saying, it's like he might see Rudy as attractive because as Nanahoshi mentioned, he's attractive. So that's just that's just throwing that out there. But that's really all we know about Talhand. And he doesn't, honestly, he contributes to the party, of course, like they're not major, right? Like there's like at least he doesn't have any big moments, I guess, anything I feel like. So, I don't know. It's just like Talon's just like, he's kind of a black box in a sense of he's just a guy. He's just vibing, just here for the vibes.
Yeah, I know. I mean, because there's a lot of interesting stuff with the party, like the ones that don't get as much, like even with Geese, right? Like Rudeus takes note. He's like, wait, Geese mentioned in the letter that that some people had noticed Zenith in the labyrinth, but why would they say that they noticed her being in the labyrinth without mentioning that she was encased in the crystal?
Yeah, that seems really impossible because especially the way that Rudy found the secret entrance to the boss chamber, it's like, well, that was clearly untouched. And the only way he knew that was because of this very specific knowledge that he and Elinalise got from using, Orsted's teleportation. They're not his, obviously, but he and Nanhoshi have been like the only ones who've been using them. So it's like, yeah, that's I didn't go back and I thought about that a little bit, but I didn't really dwell on. It's like this doesn't make any sense as to because I didn't think about it, but I'm like, what? But were they just like lying and telling Paul what they thought he wanted to hear, or is something else afoot? Like who did? Now I'm wondering. I wasn't thinking about it before, but now I am. Fuck you. No.
Yeah, because truly, like Talhand and Geese, we know the least about. I mean, it's like they're. Well,
Geese would at least like I feel like I got at least a grasp of his character, and like who he is as a person more so, because he's no less. Talhand seems like more reserved, I guess. Like not that I don't have a grasp of his personality, but like Geese Geese he at least had stories about like I know what happens after they broke up. Right, because Talhand was like, I don't know what the fuck he did, where Geese, it's like, I moved away from adventuring because I literally could, because he's more of like the jack of all trades rogue type, and he's also just really skilled at what he does. Like I love Rudy noticing like he'd be a really good like administrator or manager. Like he's just really good with organization and people and knowing things and like logistics, right? And that's and while also being able to survive in a dungeon. Like one thing I thought was interesting is that like because they were worried about like what if we die fighting the Hydra, and they mentioned like Geese will escape, and I was even thinking about like how the fuck is he gonna do that, because he has like no offensive capability. Like how is he gonna get out of here alive, right? I feel like, but then maybe it's fucking Geese. Maybe he's just that good. And also, I don't 100% remember how dungeon mechanics work, because I just had the thought of like, they kill the monsters, and obviously other monsters can wander in. But like if hypothetically if he traced the path backwards, maybe he'd be very just less. That'd be the safest path, right? Because there'd be the lowest chance of there being monsters or at least less monsters, right? Because they exterminated everything on the way there. But so it's not impossible for him to escape, but it's like he's Geese, you know. He's just thinking about it because I thought about it. Yeah, words are hard.
What was I gonna say? Probably something about Paul. This volume is more.
I mean, I love him. You know, it's funny. It's great in the anime too because you just see his fucking stupid face. But when he's showing off for Rudy, and Rudy's like, "Oh, you're or did you get stronger?" and he's and Elinalise is like,
"I've gotten weaker."
What? And Elinalise is like, "What the fuck is that fucking face you're making? Stop that! What are you? Stop that immediately!" But then we get Roxy. And we get Rudy being a degenerate over Roxy, which like he's just I recognize her scent, and he's just like fucking. As we find out later, just goes literally like busts through multiple walls. It's like, Rudy, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Father, I feel the presence of God. Just like from their perspective, it's like what?
And then when he finds her, and it notes how he inhales her scent deeply. He huffs Roxy the first and not even like months without like a month without like having bathed Roxy at that, and he's just like, he's a fucking goofball.
Yeah, and like he just in his perverse nature, he likes to smell so much that whenever Roxy mentions the scent, he's like, "Oh, do I stink?" He's like.
Right, no, he like because she thought, oh, I was so gross that he vomited, but it's like, no, he vomited. As he explains, it's like, no, I was nervous excited because I was seeing you for the first time, and then nervous and anxious because you didn't recognize me, which I thought was interesting because it's like him living the fear for briefly that Sylphie was afraid of.
That Sylphie
right?
felt, yeah, it's so great. It's so cool.
Or if they didn't mention that directly, which maybe they did.
Yeah. No. Yeah, Rudeus does mention he's like I should apologize to Sylphie again. Because
that's right.
He does think that. Yeah. I was gonna add to the scent thing is probably because Rudeus he likes it so much because they were Roxy's used panties, so he's probably smelling that all the time, looking at the holy relic, So,
well, except
to him, it's a holy scent. It's a holy scent.
Lilia washed them.
Oh, she did, didn't she? Fuck. Okay. Well, my headcanon is severed.
I mean, he might vaguely remember the scent from before, but that was also at this point 10 years ago.
That doesn't matter. It's over. It's my headcanon now. Whatever.
But yeah,
the how Roxy notes that this is like the emperor spell, the ice whatever, and he's like, oh no, this is just like the basic whatever, but because Rudeus is using it with so much efficacy and so much mana output, it's essentially the emperor tier spell.
It's exactly, it's raised to that level like he did with the stone cannon, right?
So more confirmation, he's and he's probably emperor tier and
water as well, if not close to it, right?
Yeah. Well, water and are they the same?
Oh, I assumed. Well, because Roxy's the water. She's a king water tier, right? So and she's using ice magic. So I just assumed that they were the same.
Yeah. So it's the same. So he'd be like a water emperor then. But I wonder if he could potentially be the same with wind or something. But no, water and earth are.
Oh, I'm sure. That's the thing. It's I feel like if he really applied himself, he could probably at least in the elemental magics, right? Because he has such a talent for them. He's just kind of taking his school he's more interested in learning and making up for his weaknesses rather than going in on his strengths. I feel it, right?
Yeah, it's a good point. That's a good point.
Learning intoxication, because his classes are on intoxication and healing. When really, because I even think about it, where it's he could, if he got together with his he could teach really well at the school because he'd be the one investigating, because he understands magic just differently than anyone else in the world, right? Sylphie even talked about how it's Rudy understood combining spells better than the teachers at 5 years old, or rather 6, more like 6, but still but I mean really at age 40, but don't shh.
Yeah, we gotta be quiet about that.
Sylphie doesn't know that, right? But just like, yeah, thinking about like, because if he really applied himself to like basically doing with magic what Eris is doing with the sword, I could see him being god level or at least like emperor level in multiple. Like he's already emperor level without doing that, right? So in my head, it's like, yeah, I could see him becoming god level. I could see, but it's like that's not to his interest. He's not trying to become the strongest, and that's perfectly fine. It's just, but there's also part of me that's like, but you could be though if you wanted to, right? If that's, or like, like writing books about the ins and outs of magic. Like I could see that being a thing he does with Roxy, maybe, because she's a teacher. So like, of course they're gonna like put their heads together about magic and do like Nanahoshi just like revolutionary, like did just revolutionize some things just for her quality of life, right? Because she wants uniforms because that reminds her of home, and curry because that reminds her, where it's like Rudy could like, I don't know, he has all this knowledge and talent, so it's just like part of me is like, what if you used it though? Like I'm curious as if the story is gonna like explore that. So because I like when stories explore their other, but then again it's maybe he's just not that kind of person. So
maybe he's just dumb. So Roxy gets picked up. And it's really epic because she falls in love, and then Rudeus is very clingy. He's like always trying to be around her, and that is tantalizing for Roxy too.
I like what I like about their one thing I like about their dynamic is they have, because obviously like Roxy to Rudy is like she taught him some important things and life lessons that he holds as incredibly valuable, where she doesn't see those as super important, right? And obviously, like in actual magic skill, he's far surpassed her with what even as a kid, like he matched her, right? Like she reached the same level, or he reached the same level as her in water magic, and she would later surpass that. But also Rudy is like probably well beyond that at this point, as we were talking about. But I just think it's interesting because of the way that because of his humility. In a way, it's like, I don't know, I just think it's interesting because like how the other people around him kind of like have to respond to that, because it's like they can't think of themselves too highly because Rudy doesn't think of himself that highly, even though like Roxy is exceptional, she is great, but like because she's comparing herself with Rudy and Rudy's kind of down on himself, it's like, I don't know, I feel like it's just better for him and the people around him, I feel like, if he actually like had that confidence and that perspective, because again his perspective is horribly skewed, because it's like, I'm not that good at swordsmanship, I'm not good as Eris, Ghislaine, or Paul, and it's like, yeah, they're all really good swordsmen, what are you talking about?
You're
like,
not a swordsman.
Dude, like, I'm so weak I couldn't even defeat Orsted. It's like, yeah, no shit, nobody can defeat Orsted.
No one
What's
can.
wrong with you? Right? And I want him to have that moment where he just like, it clicks and it's like, no, you're awesome, dude. Like, because he had
You're awesome, guy. What are you doing? Maybe.
Like when he's talking about like, I still have so much to learn, but it's like, again, going back to like this, how high does the ceiling go? Like I'm thinking now, I just thought about the line because Kaido says that to Luffy, or about mentally about Luffy rather, but it's like, because I part of me wants to see how high that ceiling goes, but it's like,
I can see a similar scene like Orsted taking the place of Kaido and looking at Rudeus. How high will your ceiling go? It's funny. It's a funny thought.
One more detail before we get to the the boss fight, because I feel like that's hold on, let me double check my notes. I don't really have that much else to say before we get to the boss fight, but I just think it's neat how in this world of magic they tend to frame real life things as magic or curses, like post-traumatic stress disorder or carbon monoxide poisoning, right? Which I thought was interesting, because it's like it's another point of knowledge that Rudy has. Well, and it even comes in negatively with Zenith, because like Zenith has this psychological problem with her memories being gone. And, obviously, I mean, amnesia and memory loss, like with Alzheimer's, is a really very bad problem in our world as well, right? But the fact that they have nothing at all to deal with it, because, like, well, he just points out that, maybe the doctors in this world are, stunted because of magic, because magic can solve so many problems that Rudy needed doctors for in his previous world, so like that. Stagnated that knowledge, right? I just think it's a neat world building thing.
Yeah. No, it is. That it is really interesting. What was I going to say though about? I think I had one more thing to say about Roxy. Apparently it wasn't important enough to remember, so we can just continue on until I think about it. Reminded of it maybe. I do want to mention I love there's a little bit of a deviation with what the anime does on Paul trying to talk to Rudeus about Roxy, because Paul picks up that Roxy has a thing for Rudeus. In the novels, in this novel that we just read, Paul, while they're taking a leak, Paul's like, hey, I want to talk to you about something, but it might lower the morale of the group, and I don't know if I should tell it. And then Rudeus said, well, then don't tell me. We'll do it until after. And then Rudeus recollects on that. He's like, oh, maybe Paul was trying to talk to me about Roxy. Mm-hmm. Well, in the anime, I actually like this change a lot because it's just very Paul. He's like, listen, son, I used to only use one sword, and I thought that was perfectly fine. I was perfectly content with that. But now I can't be caught without my two swords. It's like, okay. He was talking about Roxy there.
I don't remember picking up on that when I watched it. But
then again, it's also
been a while. It's been a while. Maybe I don't know. Because I don't remember. I see at that point, I don't know if I knew they were going the polygamy route or not. I might have known. But I don't
of course, sure. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, obviously you wouldn't put two and two together. Yeah, you'd have to retrospectively think of it. Yeah, okay.
Right, and because and that scene wasn't in. Yeah, I really like that because it's more implicitly telling Rudy what Paul was trying to tell him that he didn't get the chance to it. Because it hurt when he said don't say it because he's thinking death flags, right? But it doesn't matter because he.
You bleeped out. I don't know if it's my...
No, it's my mic. I've been having mic problems the whole time because my preamp cable has been busted for months to a year, and it's getting to the point where I need to replace it. It worked fine earlier today, though. I streamed for 3 hours with no problem, but it's just been bad. What was I saying? I think it's neat that the anime changed it, and I forget what I was saying.
Yeah, and not only did they change it, but I wonder if Rifujin himself had input on that, because it is so Paul to put it that way. I to the point where I prefer that the scene in the anime, how they do it, a little implication, rather than like maybe Paul was going to say this.
It's definitely impossible, because I remember hearing about, for season 1 of ReZero, apparently they got in contact with the author to not truncate, but condense certain lines and scenes to make it better fit the runtime of the TV anime, basically. And for season 2, they didn't do that, which is why episodes will run for 28 minutes or 30 minutes or longer, basically, because so it is possible that they got similar input from Rifujin for condensing certain aspects of the story to fit, because specifically for this part of the story, because again, longer volumes in the same amount of time, right? So yeah, it's definitely possible. But anyway, but then we get the Hydra fight, and again, it's like this complete wall for Rudy, in that it blocks out his biggest asset, and it fucking blinks his arm off. Jesus.
Fucking metal, dude, metal right there. Holy shit.
And the fucking obviously the save Zenith even if it kills you, which is not necessarily I mean, Paul doesn't even live up, he doesn't let Rudy live up to that, of course, but something I've mentioned
I remember mentioning this to you when the episodes came out, but I'll just recite it here. Some observations I had after watching the episodes and having the knowledge of what I read in the web novels. Paul does tell Rudeus, save your mother even if it kills you, and it's a great, Rudeus has a great internal monologue about how it's true, that's not something a father should say, but I'm glad he said it, because it shows me that he sees me now truly as an equal. Mm-hmm. But that's not actually quite it. Well, Paul might have said that, but he never had any intention of letting Rudeus sacrifice himself to save his mother. Never had any intention. To Paul, first and foremost, he's still Rudeus's father, and he proves that. He shows that he demonstrates why he's still even with all of his shortcomings, even with being down on himself, he shows no, he's truly a father because he doesn't let Rudeus become a sacrifice, right? He'd much rather die in his place, even if it means he won't get to have that reunion or see Aisha and Norn again. I think that's just really beautiful. That's my interpretation anyway. That Paul. I don't even think that is an interpretation. Like you look at the action, and what's your only conclusion is that Paul never intended that to happen.
Well, I think one way I was gonna say one way I think you can read it is that like because like he was when he saw Zenith, he lost himself, right? He was like going to like if they didn't stop him, like he was going to get himself killed, just try like out of that desperation, right? Because of the goal he's been searching for so long, like not exclusively for the whole time, but basically since the teleportation incident started, right? And like she's the person who he started his family with, right? She's the foundation, like and so one way I think you can read it is that like he did in the moment of him saying to Rudy of like save her no matter what, right? Like he meant it, but then when push came to shove, well, it came to shove. He literally shoved Rudy out of the way. Like he couldn't actually so like like I think that can also be true. Like I don't think it's just a thought I had. Right?
Because I think what I say also resonates with what Rudeus sort of realizes at the end of this ordeal after everything's all said and done. Whereas before, I think it was the beginning of this volume, he was thinking of their family in Paul's eyes as a hierarchy, like Zenith number 1, Lilia number 2, Aisha and Norntide number 3, or I don't know, it was Zenith, it was something like that. But Rudeus dead last. But then he has this sort of like semi-realization after the vote. He's like, maybe he saw all of us as equal, like just his family. But I think that's the correct answer.
Yeah,
I think that is the truth of the matter. Is that and that's why Paul would have never let him sacrifice himself, because they're all equally precious to him. But I did want to note, and this I think is really really cool, putting it this way into perspective. When Paul gets very mad at Rudeus for not being as emotional as he is for seeing Zenith after so long, and wanting to be gung ho to save her right away. Rudeus mentally notes, he's like, well, really, I've never really seen her as a mother. Not only that, I didn't know her for very long. From my vantage, she was just someone I happened to live with for the beginning of my life, and then I moved on.
I think about a tenth of his life, basically, because it's like he has 34 plus 16. He's about 50 years old. He knew her for like 5 years, right? Like he knew people in school for longer than that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what he essentially concludes is like, I didn't really get to truly know her, I feel like, as a mother. And what's super, devastating is that now, he could potentially never get the chance.
Yeah.
She's not really his mother anymore. So I think that's pretty gut-wrenching. Like that was his like last, one of his last thoughts about her before going in on this endeavor, and only to now find that, well, maybe I never will get to truly know her. I think that's damn. It's damn.
Yeah, well, it's like it's just so I don't know. I like boom, and just like that 1-2 punch. It's immediately like, oh, this is why the man God said he would have regretted it, because he lost or he would have regretted going to Beggaret, because he would have feeling guilty and responsible for his father's death, and not even having anything to show for it in the sense of like their original goals, right? Because again, you can argue that he does ultimately, like I do like how even without seeing the man God again, he comes to find like I don't like he's come to terms with the situation. I had to be very careful about the way I worded that, right? But he's like of not regretting it, right? And how things went, even though obviously things could have gone better, but if he was stronger or however, but like it happened, and he's able to put that behind him and go forward anyway, right? And it's really good. But I want to say also, because like one thing I like him, the way that specifically like Paul saw Rudy and like sighed in relief and then died, like that part was like, it hurts, because he was only he was holding on to life, even as like literally like it's cut in two, until he saw that Rudy was okay, and then it's like, oh, I can go now. And it's like, and a car alarm decided to fucking. I'm so mad.
You're having a tough one today. It's like the first time too that like it's like the double whammy. Talk about a double whammy. You're
sirens, microphone.
You're literally Rudeus in this episode.
Car alarm stopped.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't remember what I was saying, so I can't correct it in that edit. So sorry, you guys are gonna hear a little bit of car alarm probably. Anyway, but the part that really like hit me, I think, because obviously I knew I've known Paul's death was coming since before we started the reading because I watched the anime, right? The part that really like hit me emotionally and got me to like cry was the part when Rudy realized, like, had that realization of like, oh, he loved all of us, right? Like, all of his family was important to him, and that's when I was like, and then I cried with Rudy basically because that's when it really hit him too. Yeah, no, really good stuff. And then right after that, they're like, okay, someone needs to fuck him. That'll help. And it's like, well, okay, this is a little bit of a whiplash there. Not whiplash. I mean, I chose to read the next chapter. This is part of the chapters I read in one day, but so. But yeah, no, I getting more of the Roxy perspective, I think, was nice. Just because, like, watching the anime, I remember just being like, Roxy, what the fuck? She just, like, jumped his bones, and I'm, like, thinking, this is a little, but now, like, reading it, it's like, oh, no, okay, I get it now, yeah, where it's like, yeah, of course she fucking loves him. Because we didn't know about her, I didn't know about her fantasy, in the, from the watching the anime. She'd never had an opportunity to talk about that, and where in the novel, it's like, yeah, she literally wanted to be saved by a very handsome adventurer, and it's like, well, the fuck, that's what happened, and
before I continue on that track, I did want to talk about the battle a little bit from Rudeus' perspective. I think it's really cool that we get two kind of instances where you start to see the limitations of the Eye of Foresight. So even with Paul, Paul's really strong. But he's like not, any Orsted or anything. But like, even from Rudy's perspective, with his Eye of Foresight, he could just see blurs. Like he was like, Paul became a blur. Oh, Paul became a blur again, and like did this shit. It's like he couldn't adequately track his movements to a T. And then again at the end, because he couldn't react because his Eye of Foresight was seeing a bunch of like tentacle blurs, and he was like, what the fuck is going on? But Paul, right, has much better experience and much better senses, so he's able to like act on that, whereas Rudeus is like relying on his Eye of Foresight, and he just sees something he can't comprehend, so he just like doesn't know what to do, right?
Yeah, I guess that would be another way for him to level up potentially, because I remember talking about like hypothetically as if the man god had something like that, like I was wondering like, oh, maybe his capability is like, it's kind of like the Eye of Foresight, it's just like goes across a much longer period of time, and he can better parse through that information, right? So hypothetically, if Rudy became able to parse through that information and react to multiple things at the same time, because like that's because I just a personal anecdote is I'm sure if you I know you're not much of a when you're playing like a video game, for example, I'm sure you've probably run it, like you become familiar with patterns and you tendencies, like to give a personal one with Pokemon is because obviously there's strategy to its gameplay, like especially playing it competitively. Like I remember playing with a friend and I made a move he didn't expect just because I was thinking like, okay, he can either do this or he can do this, and I can do this move which is better in circumstance A but does nothing in circumstance B, or I can do this move that does something good here but something less good here. Like I'm judging all of my possible options and trying to choose the best one, right? So hypothetically, if Rudy learns to do that in a second with all the information that I can see from watching these powerful characters, so it's like, yeah, that's a way he could level up his game, so to speak.
So it's so funny you say that, because I literally just had a gamer experience like that yesterday, but it was versus another real player. I was playing a role in League of Legends that I don't play often, but I was playing against a guy who not only mains this certain character, but mains this role. And but I was actually doing all right. We literally were in each other's heads at one point where he used it's called in League, they're called ultimate abilities. He uses ultimate, and the way it interacts with one of my abilities, he knows how it interacts, but I know what his reaction is going to be and how he's going to and how he's not going to do anything immediately after his R because he's waiting for me to use my W. So for like literally, I shit you not, for 3 seconds, we were both standing still because we both were anticipating each other's movements, and then we both realized in real time, like, oh shit, both of us are trying to read each other right now. So then we both had to make our movement. Then we both made another movement like the same time. It was it was so funny. I was like, me and this guy are like literally like we're playing like chess in the middle of the match.
Yeah, that's
and this
exactly
1v1 while the game is going on.
Right, because I was gonna say with my Pokemon example, it's more like chess because there's more. It's a turn-based game, right? With it's a real-time game, you know. So it's closer to like what I'm getting at with Rudy, right? Of just because that actual like I imagine actual experts in their field, like with sports or combat, like have that skill, right? Hypothetically, So I don't know. I'm just spitballing with that thinking because like now we're getting to the point where I don't know what's coming next. So everything I say at this point regarding the future is barring a couple of things like spoiled on the covers of volumes, is speculation. So, but anyway, but yeah, Roxy is good, and she's able to she break through to him and help him out, and it's nice.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have so many interesting things I could say about this entire segment. Okay. From Roxy, what Roxy's doing, to Rudeus's reunion with her, how this connects to him and Sylphie, yada yada yada. But I have a whole video about this, guys. I don't know if I'm sure most people watching this know about my in defense of Mushoku Tensei's controversial episode video, but I've already said that before, and I said it much better there than I would say it here live on a podcast. So if you guys are interested, go to my youtube.com/HotBoySpicy. If you haven't seen it yet, I imagine most of you have. Yeah, it's literally the last video I ever uploaded back in July. So just take a gander at it. So I have some cool things to say about this segment, but no point in repeating it here. So.
But honestly, and just I guess to use that to segue into some other stuff is like, I don't know, the Roxy's just, I don't know. Because again, she's kind of like, she's even still, I'd say she's like my least favorite of the main three girls, but like, she's still good. And this novel is definitely like getting where it's like, okay, no, yeah, she's got like, just her, like, just her as like a woman, I think, being like, isolated from her home for her, not having the ability to speak with her, family in their heads. Being more of like the way Norn is like, she literally looks my age. Like, what's wrong with you, Rudy? Right? But it's like, well, yeah, she's also 50 years old, but like, she's just the term is loli baba, which is like, loli and then grandma. True. Basically. So
Roxy is the goat, loli baba.
Yeah. So so it's like, and her just like the way she's just like she's like fucking when Rudy goes to talk to Sylphie, she's like, okay, I'll go, I'm ready. She's practically like rushing out the door because she's down on herself and just expects not to be like and Rudy, like the fact that like, yeah, that's another, I guess, thing of him from his other world of him being, an otaku and like, as mentioned in the first chapter, being, interested in like loli porn, right? And it's like, well, that's Roxy, that she's of that body type, right? So it's like, that him having this like degenerate appeal, not, well, I don't know, that's a little extreme of a word, but it's not wrong. I don't think it's wrong to say, but it's like, he's able to give Roxy a love that, she's going to struggle very hard. Because I do, idealistically, yeah. I think that she could find it somewhere else. It's just going to be very difficult, right?
Yeah, and, yeah. Well, even more interestingly is like the most likely candidate for that would be a fellow Meagard, right? But not for Roxy, because for Roxy, it's she can't really communicate adequately with the other Meagards because she can't do what they can. So literally on two fronts, romantically, she's kind of fucked, because realistically, the only one that would readily have her, in a romantic and sexual way is another Meagard. That's what obviously they're into, because that's their race. That's who they, that's who they predominantly procreate.
Yeah,
with.
And her being a demon puts her on the back foot with basically a lot, especially Millis humans, right?
Yeah, true.
And then like she's again lowly body type, so also on the back foot. She's starting from like 50 meters back. Like this is not a race that she, So it's like, but yeah, Rudy is, she's the wish fulfillment. He's the, like, people are like, oh, harem is like wish fulfillment. No, Rudy is Roxy's wish fulfillment.
True.
Actually,
though,
she and I don't remember if they directly mentioned that, but it's like, yeah, Rudy is like Roxy's like best and possibly, at least for a long time, only chance of finding love, and so it's like, so it's good that it worked out the way it did, right? Yeah. God,
yeah.
Especially love the way that, like, with Sylphie, it's like, because obviously she'd heard of Roxy, because she never met her, because, like, that wasn't until after Roxy left that Rudy met Sylphie. But just like her seeing, like, oh, I see it, like, you're just like, once I saw that you're just another, like, just like me, and that you're just a girl who is in love with Rudy. It's like, and like, boom, okay, yeah, I'm fine with this. Like, of course, Rudy's awesome, isn't he? Like, of course, another girl would be in love with him. So, and it's, of all people, it's Roxy. It's like this person who he's already, like, Rudy loved Roxy before he met Sylphie. So, like, it's, and yeah, and I don't know. There's also just like that faith in him where it's like, he is able to love multiple women, and I don't know. I'm curious to see how that, because I think they even mentioned how she's sleeping in another room right now. Like, they don't share a bedroom with the three of them. Like, it's still Rudy and Sylphie, and then Roxy in another room. So there's this, like, again, I'm thinking like the family hierarchies where it's like, I'm sure Rudy's heart and what I want in my heart is like equality and mutual love for everyone. But, like, right now their living arrangement doesn't involve that, right? So yeah.
Well, I mean, they did. Roxy did say that she wants Rudeus right now to focus on Sylphie,
and eventually, before
she
making Roxy's not pregnant yet.
Yeah. True, and also Roxy requested the small room. She likes it.
Yes,
so.
yeah.
It's all her. It was all by her request. So we'll see what her treatment is henceforth. Especially once we get one more in the picture, and this is not a spoiler for Crafts, by the way, guys.
Yeah, I've mentioned it. So
but we shall see about that. But yeah, no, the problematic stuff. I think it's always a matter of execution. Of course, everything's always a matter of execution. I guess that's kind of like a nothing statement on its face, but truly in this case, it resonates here, because maybe it'd be one thing if we didn't have all of these elements and all of this strife leading up to Roxy actually being accepted, right? But it's so tasteful in its execution. Rifujin is a god for even attempting it. Well, not a god for attempting it, but he's at least respectable for even attempting something like this, and especially attempting it so tastefully. Like, he really wanted to make it like resonate and work and be realistic. Like, he was very much, you can tell there's so many elements going into this. There's so much friction. There's so many worries from Rudeus. Rudeus is so fucking worried that he literally thinks, he's like, well, there's a chance that Sylphie just walks away, and then I'm left there with and then Roxy might, is probably going to feel horrible too if Sylphie walks away from this too. So, and then everyone's going to hate me for this, all this stuff. And, and Norn does have a huge problem with it. Not even, Rudeus is not, comfortable with it. It is sort of it's a concession, right? It's like he needs to make both of them happy, but at the same time, it's like it feels grating to not be faithful to one person. But it's like at this point, he feels like he can't help it. It's just, again, and from Sylphie's acceptance, why she accepts, because again, like, you could look at the quote on face value, I imagine Rudy would do this at one point anyway. I mean, like, he's a pervert, and he is handsome, and yada yada yada. But at the end of the day, I think what resonates with more is that Sylphie is like, oh, Roxy, you're the person I've heard a lot about, and Rudeus truly appreciates you as his teacher, as someone who's taught him so much, and that means something. It's much more than he ran away from me and was sexually promiscuous and now is paying the price for it. It's that, no, like, you were in the picture before me, and there is like some real attachment there that I have to acknowledge first and foremost. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to tackle this situation. And Sylphie, while you could make the argument, is unrealistically accepting, at the very least, you have to respect her character for being like the person, and I explained this in my video, she is the person both Rudeus and Roxy have needed for their entire lives. Because not only is she the savior for Rudeus in this way, she's the savior for Roxy. She mends both of their constant issues of not being accepted in a pack. Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful that Sylphie can find this resolution for both people, and she can be this like light for both of these individuals, to where now it's not just a dynamic, it's not just two wives with Rudeus, it's these two people that seemingly now Roxy looks at Sylphie as someone she can truly count on and appreciate, right? Like a equivocal relationship in some sense, not, obviously between Sylphie and Roxy, it's not, romantic or sexual, but it's almost equivocal in that vein. Because of that, that immense amount of acceptance Sylphie has, and it's what Roxy needs. And I think that resonates a lot more than Sylphie's one-off quote, kind of dissing Rudeus about, being promiscuous, mm-hmm. just being a pervert. But even that line does not really, is coming less from her examination of Rudeus and more from her lack of, from her complexity inside about feeling, feeling a little bit inadequate, right? Like not being good enough at X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. And that also resonates with her examination of Roxy, and that like, I would get kind of jealous when he talked about you, but now that I'm looking at you and I see you, I don't feel that way anymore about you specifically, because, you're just like me in a sense. And what's so fucking cool about Sylphie's quote is like, you're just like me. You're just someone who loves the man I fell in love with too, in the same way as well. You love the same qualities I love about him. But it's funny too that Roxy is able to look deep into Rudeus before this in the segment where she's like, Rudeus appears so cool, so suave, able to do this and that. But fundamentally, he's kind of a weak person. Like she says this, like when the going gets tough, sometimes he falters. I saw this back in Buena Village, and I had to really help him out. So it's like both of them fundamentally like get Rudeus. And it's tasteful in that way, and that there's this mutual acknowledgement that like we love the same things about Rudeus, and that we've both been substantial in his lives in some in a near equivocal facet, and Sylphie just happens to be the type that can accept this, and as unrealistic as it may be, it does. I don't think it dampers her character anymore. I think it elevates her character truly. That she has this that level of objectivity in her evaluation of the situation, and enough virtue to be able to look at the situation for what it is and come to the right conclusion, basically. The conclusion where everyone can be content, essentially. Mm-hmm. And what it takes from her is to bite a little bit of a bullet, but she does it for the betterment of the family, for Rudeus and Roxy, right? For someone that she appreciates more now, because she sees that this woman appreciates the same thing she appreciates about Rudeus. So yeah, I really do think, because I see so much people saying like Sylphie is so, Sylphie is not serious. She's just not a serious character. And I feel the opposite when I look at this. I'm like, wow, Sylphie is like such an endearing, such an interesting character to be able to look at this so unically.
That's she has like, that level that's of an interesting take, because like I guess like they're saying that she's taking this lightly or something. Is that what I was supposed to take from that idea of her not being a serious character?
I think I know what it is. I think it's people literally like taking that line that I noted earlier about how I figured this out. Yeah. Rudeus is perfect. They're just taking it at face value without any of the context surrounding it. I think is what mostly.
Okay.
Why mostly that's the case. Oh, and also obviously, and I think I even mentioned this in my video. Sylphie, like she grew up seeing two wives in the household, via Lily.
No, yeah, as they talk about, like that. Really, the only people who are are strictly monogamous in the world are the Millis Church, and Norn is that voice, right? She's the one who's like, no, this is wrong, because that's the religion she follows. That's the her set of ideals, right? And so she's, challenging them in that way. But I think what makes it, sells it for me is like, because like, as I think I mentioned before, if I didn't mention it before, I mentioned it in the comments of that video. just talking about like maybe not quite accurately frames just Sylvie as wrong, but I think like the idea that like oh, Rudy would do it like. Because the way she's framing it is a little like can be read as dismissive, but it's also just like the fact that like Rudy is only interested in people who he's in love with, right? Like that's why it didn't work out with Sarah, because partly because of his fear, right, of just abandonment and stuff. But it's like he doesn't love Sarah in the same way he loved Eris, right? And the same way, or he loves Sylvie or Roxy. Well, I say same way, but I even do highlight that. He loves Roxy and Sylvie in different ways, but he loves them all the same, right? But like so he's all like, if Sylvie understands that aspect about Rudy, then she'd be fully aware that he won't just like bang a random woman. He's going the fact that like she trusts Rudy, so like he got with Roxy, like this is a person who he loves, right? So because again he doesn't get with Elinalise, even though it's like I think they do address that, like if it was an emergency situation, like he's not going to let her die, right? But like that didn't come to that, and even though they were both horny, they mutually kept away from each other, right? During that whole journey, because it was a good month and stuff. So I think that's about all I have to say about the well, maybe not. Hold on, let me look through my notes again, specifically that's related to that. No, I think that's about it. Oh yeah, there was the line about like he may get take on more wives, and it's like, well, yeah, maybe.
Gotta surpass the father. Surpass Paul. I was gonna mention that because you did mention earlier that you were anticipating seeing Aisha and Norn's kind of whole sisterhood dynamic develop, and we do see a little bit of that.
Yes.
At the end here, where Norn's like, "Hey, Aisha, you can be honest." Like, so
and lets her be happy. And well, especially the way that, because I obviously didn't think about how it's like, well, Aisha, it's maybe a bit rude of Aisha to be crying in Lilia's arms when both of Rudy and Norn's parents are in a bad place, but like Aisha does have a parent, and she is alive and perfectly healthy, and that is something to be celebrated and be happy about. So it's Norn just like here lets her have that, right? And so unfortunately like there's still that difference in the awkwardness because but because that's the position that they're at. But like Norn is doing something nice for this sister. It's like really yes, it is a really good moment, for sure.
Hell yeah.
And also, I'm just glad to see, like, because like Norn doing well at school and making friends, and it's like, she got it. She's
got a fan club. She's got a fan club.
Yeah.
there was a note of that she's become sort of an idol, and she has like fans now. I don't know. I think it does. I know for a fact it mentions idol. She is an idol, which I guess means she's going to have fans. If she's an idol.
I mean, I don't know I don't know. We'll find out. I will find out. You already know.
Yeah.
I was going to ask because I guess hold on. Because you've read. So which of these web novels did you read, rather, or which of these in web novel form did you?
All of it.
Okay, got it. Well, I thought you mentioned the manga earlier for Volume 10. So.
You meant? I thought you meant from like here on. Yeah. So I started the web novels. Probably. It was in the middle of Volume 10 sometime. I know.
Okay, gotcha.
Because I remember I had to I had to dig around in the Volume 10 of the web novel before I got to where I was in the manga, because the manga hadn't even reached Turning Point 3 yet.
Oh, okay,
and
gotcha.
It was chapters away from, because it was very inconsistently released, the manga, and still is. I mean, I think they're still behind the anime even. The manga, yeah. So yeah, the turn, yeah. So I had to read all that, like Turning Point 3.
Yeah, I was just curious about like which chapters were new to you from the even having read the web novel. Like the extra chapter with Norn and Cliff, was that in the web novel?
No, it was not.
Okay,
no.
yeah. So
At least
okay,
I don't
so
remember it at all.
okay. Because yeah, I was just mildly curious because volume 12 doesn't actually have any extra or interlude chapters. So because the other interlude chapter might have been the Zanoba one with Ginger. I think that's the one where, because my note was Zanoba being terrifying, so I think that was the one where he choked out Ginger a bit. So I don't, was that one in the, you don't remember, or you might not remember.
I don't remember if that one was not. I know like the Norn and Rudeus one. I know wasn't.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Just a curiosity, because and again, like it's been a while since you read them, so but okay. And then I think one of the last things I have to say about Volume 12 is so I recently read a book called Hikikomori: Adolescence Without End, which is it's basically the book that sort of popularized the term hikikomori, and it sort of explained, because a psychologist he'd been encountering cases since like the late 80s and early 90s, and did a book about it in late 90s and or early 2000. I forget which year it was exactly, but in that period. And he basically talking about the phenomenon and the causes, or likely causes, and his experiences with it, and doing so in a way to help people understand it, and people now understand it. So, but one thing that caught my attention, and why it's the subtitle of the book is called Adolescence Without End, and he sort of contrasts how adulthood works in versus America and Japan, because in America, with my experiences, adulthood is leaving your parents and going out to live on your own. And one distinction he makes with Japan, because hikikomori Rudy doesn't have parents, right? He's just living on his own, right? But the reason that so in Japan, because it's not necessarily that unusual to just live with your parents for all of your life, actually. What is unusual is that at some point, basically, part of adulthood in Japan is becoming able to support your family instead of being supported. And so the reason I thought about that is because Rudy mentions not having been able to pay, because he failed to give his parents anything because they died in his previous life. And now Paul and Zenith, Paul's dead and Zenith is out of it, basically. So he felt like he was unable to support them and pay them back in this world as well. And I just thought about that because that's such an important part of I guess that's an aspect of hikikomori, and why it's considered why, again, the subtitle of the book is Adolescence Without End. And it's because the reason it's because basically a hikikomori, they're not working, they're just completely isolating, but they have to be they have to have income from somewhere, and it's usually parents. It's even if they live away from their parents, they're still being sent an allowance and subsisting off of that. And that's kind of from parents, especially mothers, who are too attached to their child in a sense, and not and helping them in that way, even though they need other kinds of help. He goes into a lot of different things in the book, but that just stuck out to me as being relevant to this, I guess, with that thought of Rudy just made me think about it, because I had been reading or just read that book. So yeah.
Damn. Yeah. Cool. I didn't actually know that. I knew about the more Eastern thing about it being more typical of a son or daughter staying with their family for a long time, and where in the West we kind of just leave pretty quickly after we turn 18. But I didn't know there was a catch where they'd stay sometimes, but then they would eventually take up the mantle on the
right, because there's a lot of respect towards elders in Japan, and so that's it. Not that it's hurt, because there's also issues with elders, especially in since there's been financial trouble in Japan for the last almost 35 years, or around 35 years. So there being increased issues with elders being abandoned, or not being looked out for, or having slipping into poverty, or just dying alone and not being noticed for weeks, stuff like that. So there's issues around it too, but generally culturally is that's what I wanted to highlight, because I thought it was interesting that Rudy mentioned, casually mentioned, not being able to pay his parents back, and I was thinking about, because even the way the novel ends off, where he's still seeing him, he still feels like he has to grow as a person and into an adult, he's I don't know. I took it of him being more of an adult than he's ever been, but that's because he's recognizing that the areas that he's weakest in, and that because like especially like the way the series started is he's like looking down on Paul as a child, but now he sees himself as a kid more in a sense like in more than he did then, right? But in that way, he's also grown much more. And become more adult, right?
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah,
you know, so it's like, and I was just thinking about that in regards to like again the adolescence and you know his God, him you know talking with Paul at the grave is just good lad.
Yeah, it's through seeing his father, you know, make that sacrifice, and then further being able to understand Paul. You know, as a consequence, or rather, as a direct result. Consequence is a negative connotation, but that allows him to understand that not only is he so similar, similarly, like he has the more adolescent type tendencies, but more he acknowledges as well that Paul, you know, had something that he might lack even now, and now he's even more gung-ho to carry on in this new life, and that because he doesn't have that baggage anymore of crippling regret, because now he's faced, you know, what he ran away from, because all this time, you know, he doesn't even want to think about his past life. He's past, but never truly moved on from it, because he never acknowledged what he actually did. After acknowledging it, after acknowledging that he can't really do anything or do much about it anymore, at the risk of like ruining this new life, he thinks, well, nothing can be done about it. I messed up back then, but truly, I'm not running away anymore. I've thought about it, I've pondered it, I've faced it. Now I can move on. And like Paul, you know, to take from Paul's example on how to be a father, you know, because I'm a father now. And being able to acknowledge strength in Paul that he didn't see before, and thereby seeing more weakness in himself. Thereby, you know, and like you said, ironically, because now he's now he considers himself a kid. Ironically, he's much more of an adult than he ever was with that declaration. Like the grave scene is goated. You know, Mushoku Tensei fans talk about it all the time for a reason.
Yeah, good stuff. That does it, I think, for me.
Yep. That's all I got to say too. Stay tuned, guys, for Kraft's finally getting to content that he's never read before. He's
content nobody ever shuts the fuck up about. No, I'm sure it's good. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I mean, you know, I'll put it this way, okay? So there's a Mushoku Tensei iceberg, okay? I'm literally just making this up.
Off the top of your head.
On the top of my head.
Okay.
But this will start the very start of going underwater into the iceberg, okay?
Okay.
Like volume 12 is like we're at the water now. Our head is slightly above water. We're about to submerge, okay? What we're about to get at was we're gonna see the iceberg. We're gonna start seeing the a little bit of its totality underwater now, okay?
Okay.
But still, 13 through 15, man, they're it's really good, but it's only the start.
Okay.
Mushoku Tensei is Mushoku Tensei, okay, for a reason, because it stays giving us some goated shit until the end, all right? So don't think this is like the peak or anything, and we're never gonna ascend to it again. No, not even close, baby, not even close. There's so much more peak to come.
Okay, looking forward to it. We'll probably read some tonight.
All right.
So
good stuff.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening, and sorry for the technical issues on my part, but we will see you next time.
Bye.